Chapter 5109. Who the hell are you? Baishu struggled to get up from the ground, one hand covering his mouth that was leaking air as he looked around warily. He'd taken 2 punches and 1 elbow from Gooden, and even a foundation-building perfected master like him couldn't take it. He was already heavily injured. But compared to his injuries, what scared him more was the 2 sudden chi attacks. There were only 2 possibilities: either Gooden was a master pretending to be weak, or it was someone else. I told you, my name's Gooden. You're not only crazy, you're also an idiot, aren't you? Gooden frowned. Baishu spat out another mouthful of blood. He was a foundation completion master, and he was treated like an idiot by an idiot. Was there anything more painful than this? But this time, Baishu didn't dare continue to fight with Gooden. If he did, he'd be beaten to death. After looking around carefully, Baishu suddenly retreated without any warning. A grand perfected foundation establishment expert had actually been scared away by a foolish brat from the secular world. This kind of thing was simply too shameful. Fortunately, this was a desolate mountain with no people. Son Baishu secretly comforted himself in his heart. Where there's life, there's hope. As long as he went back to recuperate from his injuries and plan again, he would be able to take revenge sooner or later. He ran. Gooden scratched his head, confused. He thought that this guy was crazy. Not only did he keep such a disgusting bug, but he kept pausing in the middle of a fight. Did he escape from some mental hospital? But Gooden wouldn't let him get away just like that. He chased after him, not because he wanted to kill him, but because he hadn't paid the money yet. But other than his monstrous strength, Gooden didn't have anything else he could use. He didn't have any movement techniques, so he could only run a little faster than a normal person. Trying to catch up to a complete foundation establishment practitioner like this was too much, even with Son Baishu's heavy injuries. Fortunately, this idiot's speed is so slow that it makes one's hair stand on end. Otherwise, we would have suffered a double loss today. Son Baishu looked back as he ran with all his might, and he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. However, he immediately frowned. From the looks of it, the possibility of this fool pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger was extremely small. Did that mean that someone was secretly ambushing him? Who could it be? To be able to hide from his senses without him noticing, this person wasn't weak. Only the Archaic Alliance had a master like this. Could it be a senior brother from some ancient sect? The Baisya sect had a lot of enemies, and so did Son Baime. Son Baime couldn't think of anyone who would ambush him. He had never wanted to expose his whereabouts and plans to anyone, except for his blood brother, Son Baime. Could it be Baime? Baishu froze. He didn't know that his brother was already dead. He gritted his teeth as he ran. If that was the case, he wouldn't let his brother go. Seeing that he had left Gooden far behind, Baishu finally slowed down. But before he could catch his breath, a calm voice came from in front of him. You want to rest after such a short distance? That's not good, is it? Baishu's face paled as he turned to the voice. There was a young man leaning against a tree, a faint smile on his face. It was Lin. Who are you? Son Baishu would be an idiot if he still couldn't react at this moment. At this moment, even if he used his toes to think, he could figure out that this person in front of him was the one who launched the sneak attack on him. There, his brother. Lin pointed at Gooden, who was chasing them. Gooden paused when he saw Lin. He rushed up and hugged Lin in joy. Boss? When did you come back? Why didn't you tell me? I just came back to the village. I had a meal with the old man and came looking for you. You sure ran far, making it so hard for me to find you, Lin complained. Lin complained with a half-serious smile. It was true that he ran far, but it wasn't that hard to find. After all, the blood corpse had made quite a commotion, and he had sensed it from afar. That was why he chased all the way here. I don't usually come here. I'm here to chase after this crazy person. You don't know, boss, but this crazy person has a disgusting bug that steals chickens and ducks. He even ate my old cow, and he doesn't want to pay up. Do you think I'll let him go? Gooden said angrily. Baishu wanted to cry, but there were no tears. He could endure being called a psycho, but what made him want to die was that Gooden was chasing him so hard just to make him pay. Why the fuck didn't you say so earlier? Then I can't let him go. He's a sinner. I'll leave him to you, Gooden, Linny smiled. Alright, wait a bit, I'll be done soon, Gooden replied and pounced at Sun Baishu energetically. Sun Baishu looked at Lin Yi with fear. He saw that Lin Yi really didn't want to do anything, so he quickly turned and ran. He didn't know who Lin Yi was, and Gooden wasn't someone he wanted to mess with. It was better to run. The two sneak attacks just now had taught him a lesson. Sun Baishu quickly turned around and carefully used his chi to protect his body. This way, even if the opponent attacked him with chi, he would be able to block it. He didn't think that the chi wouldn't come, but a blue lightning bolt instead. His body went numb all of a sudden, and even though he used his willpower to keep himself from falling, he still stumbled a little. Gooden, who caught up to him, punched him in the back without hesitation, sending him flying away with a grunt. He fell into a 10-meter-deep ravine, never to get up again. Lin Yi used his mind to check and made sure that the guy was dead. He nodded and patted Gooden's shoulder. Alright, this guy's dead. I'll get someone to clean up the place. Let's go back. Chapter 51:10. Oh, okay. Gooden had always listened to Lin Yi. Whatever Lin Yi told him to do, he'd do it. He'd been like this since he was young. The two walked back to the village with their arms around each other's shoulders. Lin Yi asked curiously, Gooden, I noticed that you've gotten stronger recently. You're much better than before. Who did you learn from? This wasn't a false. Gooden was never a proper practitioner, but from the way he fought with Sun Baishu, he could tell that he didn't just rely on brute strength. Every punch he made had some sort of finesse to it, and what was rare was that he didn't stick to one move or one style. He just used his heart. More accurately speaking, Gooden wasn't using his fist skills, but his fist went, a fist that could defeat 10 people with pure strength. Your grandpa, Gooden scratched his head and smiled. Really? The old man has that much free time? Linny blinked. From what he remembered, old Lin rarely taught people proactively, especially someone like Gooden, who didn't look like a good disciple at all. Old Lin wouldn't do something like playing the lute to a cow. On a deeper level, to Gooden, being able to live a peaceful life in the mountains was already a blessing. Old Lin didn't want to change his life path. Being ordinary was a blessing. He didn't want to teach me, but I don't know why my strength has been getting stronger and stronger these years. It's like I can't control it, and I always break things. Your grandpa couldn't take it anymore, and so he taught me a way to control my strength, Gooden laughed. What way? Lin Yi couldn't help but be curious. Punching 1,000 punches a day, Gooden said. What kind of stupid method is that? There's no technique at all, isn't this old man too lazy? Lin Yi was speechless. If he didn't want to teach him, then he should teach him properly. Old Lin was just tiring the kid out, but it's very useful. At first, he made me hit the rock every day with all my strength, but I kept accidentally breaking the rock. It took me a whole year to barely do it, Gooden explained. What happens after that? Lin Yi nodded. It sounded a bit more interesting. After that, I changed to hitting trees and I still asked for a bit of damage. That way, I hit trees for another year, Gooden said honestly. And then? Lin Yi continued to ask with great interest. After that, it's like fetching water. I can't use all my strength to make any splashes, and I can't make any ripples either. I can't do that even now, Gooden scratched his head. Lin Yi was shocked. He patted Gooden's shoulder, stunned. If you could do that, you'd be an unparalleled fist master. I just realized that you're actually a genius. Old Lin's method seemed perfunctory, but it was actually very meaningful. From hitting rocks to hitting trees to fetching water, every change meant that Gooden's control and understanding of strength increased. Not making any splashes or ripples was something even Lin Yi couldn't do right now. If Gooden could do that, then it meant that his control of fist strength had reached an unprecedented level. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was a fist master. Ever since he was young, Lin Yi never thought that Gooden's talent was that high. Whether it was comprehension or potential, Gooden was below average even amongst normal people. He didn't think that he'd have this kind of effect when he trained in the fist art. It was truly impressive. But come to think of it, old Lin's method would only work on someone as innocent as Gooden. If it were Lin Yi, Putting aside the question of whether he'd be able to practice 1,000 punches a day, just the random thoughts in his mind would make it hard for him to focus and control his punching strength. Lin Yi had a high comprehension, but he really couldn't do it with Gooden's stupid method. After all, it wasn't using his brain, but his body to feel and control everything. Being too smart wasn't a good thing at this time, but a bad thing. I'm not a genius, I'm stupid. Your grandpa said that he could do it in 3 months, but I've been training for 3 to 4 years and I still can't do it, Gooden said with a face full of shame. Listen to his bragging. Lin Yi didn't believe him at all. From his perspective, it was already amazing that Gooden could do this, and old Lin could do it in 3 months? He must have drunk too much, right Lin Yi bro? Why did you come back this time? Didn't you say you went to Sky Class Island? Is it fun? Is it overseas? Gooden asked impatiently. Don't rush, I'll tell you slowly. Sky Class Island isn't overseas, it's a practitioner's plane that's isolated from our world. The practitioners there are all very strong. Lin Yi patiently told Gooden everything from the beginning, telling him everything no matter if it was a secret or not. Lin Yi never hid anything from this childhood friend of his. The two walked back to Star West Village, and Lin Yi didn't even finish talking about the northern island. He regretted it immediately. Wasn't he a bit too detailed? How long would it take for him to finish everything? But thinking about it, now that the Archaic Alliance's business was done, Lin Yi didn't have anything urgent to do. He was planning to stay in Star West Village for a few more days, since he had nothing better to do anyway. He might as well tell Gooden the story. For the next 3 days, Lin Yi stayed with Gooden. Of course, he ate with old Lin and Aunt Qing. Lin Yi tried all sorts of methods, but he couldn't gain any advantage over old Lin. He couldn't help but sigh. The old man's skill at stealing food was really off the charts. The only thing he got out of it was that after 3 days, Lin Yi finally told him about Sky Class Island. Even then, Gooden still wanted more, as if he wanted to give up his life to accompany him. He always wanted to go to the outside world, but because of the goo poison, he couldn't leave Star West Village too far. Sky Class Island was just a dream. Chapter 5111. Your cooking isn't bad. Gooden must have done a lot in his past life to be able to get such a virtuous wife like you. Lin Yi couldn't stop praising Yuan, who was at the side. She was the one who prepared this meal. Not at all, Aunt Qing's cooking is much better than mine. I learned a lot from her. I'm satisfied if I can cook half as well. Yuan smiled and looked at Gooden. Yuan smiled as she looked at Gooden. Her life now was to stay at home and do some chores, and occasionally she'd go out to the fields with Gooden. She'd seen the outside world, but she preferred this kind of simple life. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gotten together with Gooden in the first place. Aunt Qing's cooking is good, but unfortunately, I don't have the luck to eat it. Lin Yi shook his head and sighed. What? Haven't you been eating Aunt Qing's cooking these few days? Yuan asked curiously. Lin Yi bro can't compete with his grandpa. Gooden explained as he wolfed down the food. Our family's misfortune. Sorry for the embarrassment. Lin Yi felt that old Lin didn't have any respect for his elders. He was already so old, and yet he was still able to snatch food from a young person like him so easily. Yuan immediately covered her mouth and laughed. In order to find Aunt Qing to learn how to cook, she often went to the Lin family. Old man Lin had always been very serious in front of juniors like them. She didn't expect him to have such an old urchin side. Forget it. Let's not talk about these sad things. Right, Gooden, is the effect of the goo poison on you much weaker now? Lin Yi asked. No, Gooden shook his head. Then you stayed in the West Star Mountain for 3 days. You could still be so lively when fighting against a master like Sun Baishu. If it was before, you would have been so tired that you needed to drink some spring water, right? Lin Yi asked curiously. Because I didn't use my full strength, Gooden said shockingly. What? You didn't use your full strength when you beat up Sun Baishu? You didn't use your full strength against the blood corpses? Lin Yi was taken aback. He was already shocked when he saw Gooden's strength, and now that he was still alive and kicking after the fight, he subconsciously thought that the poison's effect on him had weakened. He didn't think that this wasn't Gooden's true strength. The blood corpse bug was already a powerful monster, and Sun Baishu was a foundation-building perfected master. Even if Lin Yi helped a little in the dark, the most important thing was still Gooden's own strength. If this wasn't his full strength, then what would it be like if he went all out? No, I'm still holding back more than half of my strength. Otherwise, if I use my full strength, my body will become as weak as if I'm sick. I must quickly drink the spirit spring water to alleviate the pain. That feeling is too uncomfortable. Gooden said with lingering fear. This kind of situation happened a lot when he first started training, and it had left a shadow in his heart. No matter what, he would subconsciously hold back his strength to prevent the same thing from happening again. So if you really used your full strength, both Sun Baishu and the blood corpse bug would die in one punch. Hey, you really are a monster, Lin Yi sighed. I'm not that strong, Gooden scratched his head honestly. Lin Yi was speechless. Indeed, from the perspective of Sky Class Island, a foundation-building perfected master wasn't strong at all, but this was the common world. If Gooden's words got out, people would spit blood in anger. Gooden didn't have any concept of this. In his eyes, whether it was Lin Dongfang or Lin Yi, they were all many times stronger than him. He didn't think that killing Sun Baishu in one punch was something amazing. At the end of the day, it was because he hadn't seen the outside world. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so confident. Right, I thought of something that might be able to store spirit spring water. That way, you can go out and play more often. Lin Yi's eyes lit up. Gooden wanted to go out and see the outside world. As his big brother, of course, he couldn't forget about this. What is it? Gooden was happy. The Wanyankan box. Anything that's placed in it will retain its medicinal properties. Maybe spirit spring water will work too. Let's go, let's try it out, Lin Yi said excitedly. Whether it was old Lin or Gooden, spirit spring water was something they couldn't live without. Old Lin was fine, going out for a while wasn't a problem, but Gooden couldn't. Like he said, once he used his full strength, he would become weak and powerless. He couldn't live without spirit spring water, and spirit spring water was very special. No matter what you put it in, it would lose its effect. It was almost impossible to bring it out. However, they could try the Wanyankan box. At this point, the two couldn't care less about eating. They ran out excitedly to try it out. They just used the Wanyankan box to store a bit of spirit spring water, and the two were dumbfounded. The box was leaking. The Wanyankan box could perfectly store the medicinal properties of all kinds of herbs, so even if it looked like a normal box, Lin Yi thought that it was a completely sealed box. Otherwise, how could the medicinal properties be preserved? Who would have thought that it really was a wooden box? The spirit spring water leaked out the moment it was put in, not a single drop was left. What do we do? The two looked at each other for a while, and Lin Yi suddenly had an idea. He took a mineral water bottle and put the spirit spring water into the Wanyankan box. This way it wouldn't leak out. In the end, it really didn't leak anymore. Unfortunately, perhaps because of the mineral water bottle, the spirit spring water lost its effect, becoming no different from normal spring water. Lin Yi was speechless for a while, and finally shook his head. I don't have a choice. Looks like I'll have to go back to Sky Class Island and think of a way to refine this Wanyankan box again. I believe it won't take too long. Gooden, you'll have to stay in the village for the time being. It's fine, I'm not in a hurry. This way I can practice in peace. Gooden was a little disappointed, but he wasn't too stubborn about going out. Plus, he couldn't just go out casually before he mastered it. What if he embarrassed Lin Yi? Okay, I'll come back to pick you up. Lin Yi patted Gooden's shoulder. This was his most important friend, and he had to help him fulfill this wish. Chapter 51:12. At the end of the day, Old Man Lin was his only relative. Since he was going to set the island as his base camp in the future, he had to let Old Man Lin have a look. As for Lin Yi, he went to another place. He wanted to meet Big Brother Dofeng in person. In the vast sea, a luxurious cruise ship sailed slowly. Its speed was almost slowed to the limit. From a distance, it did not seem to be moving at all. It looks luxurious on the outside, but there are mysteries hidden inside. No one would have thought that such a luxurious cruise ship is actually a branch of the Red Conches. Big Brother Dafeng, you're really bold. Lin Yi leaned on the railing and looked into the distance. The blue sky and the sea stretched as far as the eye could see. Even with his eyesight, he could not find a third thing. Heh boss, don't underestimate this luxury ship of mine. It's using the most advanced technology, and all communication signals are extremely secretive. Even the satellites in the sky won't be able to detect it. This is international waters, too, so they won't be able to reach that far. Dafeng Bro chuckled behind him. I mean, you actually dared to ask me to come here. Aren't you afraid of being discovered? Lin Yi glanced at him. The people he had to be wary of were naturally the people in the center. Be it the Red Conches or the Fire Wolves, the two were the same organization. They were both branches of the center. For Big Brother Dafeng, the real danger came from the center's headquarters. After all, he was now Lin Yi's spy. Boss Lin Yi, don't worry. The people in this cruise ship branch are all trustworthy. Furthermore, the branch has a lot of autonomy. As long as we don't take the initiative to report, even the headquarters won't know our exact location, Big Brother Dafeng said confidently. Oh, then do you know the exact location of the center's headquarters? Linith. Ever since he discovered the Chamber of Commerce in the center on Heaven Island, his interest in the center had grown. It was rare for his primordial spirit to be projected back to the secular world. If there was a chance, he planned to infiltrate the center's headquarters to investigate. I really don't know about this. Rumor has it that the location of the central headquarters is not fixed. Only the people in the headquarters know the exact location. Big Brother Dafeng shook his head and smiled bitterly. All these years, the central headquarters has let us do whatever we want, and we're also very secretive about the central headquarters. Aside from the routine report every once in a while, we basically have no interaction with them. Even if it's a routine report, it's only through satellite communication. To be honest, I still don't know what my superior looks like. Then can you think of a way? Lin Yi couldn't help but frown. The central organization was actually so cautious in their actions. They didn't even reveal the slightest flaw to their own subordinate organization. It was really unexpected. To be honest, Boss Lin Yi, ever since I received the letter you sent from Heaven Island 2 years ago, I've been trying in this regard. I've tried many methods, but none of them succeeded. Half a year ago, I was the closest to success. My superior was ready to summon me to the headquarters, but I don't know why I was suddenly stopped. Thinking about it, it's a pity. Big Brother Dafeng couldn't help but sigh. It wasn't just to spy for Lin. In fact, even he himself was very curious about the central headquarters. People had a thirst for knowledge. The more mysterious the central headquarters was, the more they, the subordinates, wanted to find opportunities to probe and understand. This was human nature. There's such a thing? Lin Yi thought for a moment and suddenly said, there must be a reason for the sudden stop. Could it be that you're being suspected? No way. Big Brother Dafeng was shocked. He immediately shook his head and said disapprovingly, that's impossible. If the higher-ups were really suspicious of me, they would have taken action a long time ago. How could there be no movement for half a year? That's true. Lin Yi nodded. If the Central was really an extremely strict organization, once they were suspicious, they would definitely eliminate the root of the problem quickly to prevent future trouble. It was impossible for them to not take action for half a year. It seemed that he was indeed overthinking. To be honest, boss, your sudden return this time is too surprising. I thought you were joking when you called me before. I didn't expect it to be true. Big Brother Dafeng smiled. You've worked hard these few years. Lin Yi sighed. Although he did not ask Big Brother Dafeng to do anything particularly dangerous in the past few years, even if he did nothing, the sensitive identity of an undercover agent itself represented a huge risk. Not to mention, he still had to find a way to inquire about the central headquarters. Every attempt he made before was actually risky. This was a dangerous job that put his life on the line. Ordinary people might not be able to withstand such huge pressure. Boss Lin Yi, what are you talking about? This is what I should do. Big Brother Dafeng smiled. Lin Yi patted him on the shoulder. In fact, this time, Big Brother Dafeng directly asked him to come to this cruise ship branch. In addition to showing that he had complete control of this branch, it was not difficult for Lin Yi to guess another more important intention: to express his loyalty. Being an undercover agent was the most insecure and belonging profession in the world. Just like Big Brother Dafeng. For the central headquarters, he was a traitor, but for Lin Yi and the others, he might not be 100% trusted. After all, no one knew if he would secretly rebel again. As an undercover agent, the best way to show loyalty was to provide important information. However, because the central headquarters was too mysterious, Big Brother Dafeng could not dig out any really valuable and important information in the past few years. Now that he was suddenly summoned by Lin Yi, it would be a lie to say that he was not flustered at all. That was why they met on the cruise ship today. This meant that Big Brother Dafeng was showing everything he had in front of Lin Yi. If he wanted to rebel again in the future, these underlings of the cruise ship branch were a fatal danger. At that time, as long as one of them leaked information to Lin Yi, he would die without a burial place. Going this far was no different from showing his loyalty. Lin Yi could 100% trust his loyalty, but Big Brother Dafeng had to pay a huge price for it. He was walking a tightrope. If one of the underlings of the cruise ship branch was unreliable and secretly leaked information to the central headquarters, he would also die without a burial place. Chapter 51:13. For Big Brother Dafeng to be able to do what he did today, it meant that he was not a fool. He would not do things that he was not confident about, or else he would have died long ago. Although Big Brother Dafeng did not say it, Lin Yi knew it. The two had a tacit understanding. While the two were talking, a fishing boat suddenly appeared in the distance. Unexpectedly, the fishing boat approached them. Seeing that Lin Yi seemed a little surprised, Big Brother Dafeng smiled and explained, "Boss, don't be surprised. Fishing boats are the best cover at sea. The people who go out on missions here all rely on fishing boats. It seems that Mute and the others are back." Mute? Lin Yi was stunned. "Yeah, a mute Chinese man. I saved him at sea half a year ago. He used to be a special forces soldier abroad. He is clean and efficient. Sometimes he is better than Meng Gaohai and the others." Big Brother Dafeng nodded. Half a year ago? Lin Yi's expression changed slightly when he heard this. The timing was too coincidental. He could not help but remind, "Aren't you afraid that he is a spy sent by the central headquarters?" "No, don't worry, boss. I'm very cautious about this matter. This Mute is just an ordinary person. It happened because of the tsunami. When I saved him, he was already dead. Later on, as a last resort, I forcefully electrocuted him back to life. If he's really an undercover agent sent by the central headquarters, he wouldn't use this method to get close to me, right? Moreover, I found someone to check his background afterward. Everything is normal," Big Brother Dafeng said confidently. "It is better to be safe than sorry." Lin Yi nodded. At this time, a ladder had been set up between the fishing boat and the cruise ship. A dark-skinned young man with a buzz cut walked over quickly. He looked a bit like a special forces soldier. Even his walk showed a rare courage and capability. Mute walked over and nodded to Big Brother Dafeng. He then handed over a file, but his eyes fell on Lin Yi with some scrutiny. "Not bad, not bad. You are really good. This file can save our branch a lot of trouble. Go get your reward." Big Brother Dafeng opened the file and looked through it. His face was full of praise. "Sit." Mute responded. He looked deeply into Lin Yi's eyes before turning around to leave. At this time, Lin Yi suddenly said, "You said he's an ordinary person?" "That's right. Although he was in the special forces, isn't he just an ordinary person compared to a cultivator?" Big Brother Feng nodded in surprise. "Then you've really made a mistake. This is a true early-stage foundation establishment expert, also known as a Heaven Dao stage expert in the secular world. Although he hid his aura very well and could easily fool you Heaven stage experts, it's not very realistic for him to hide from my senses. If I'm not wrong, you should be a spy sent by the central headquarters, right?" Lin Yi stared at Mute with an indifferent expression. "What?" Big Brother Feng was shocked. Mute stopped in his tracks and turned around to look at Lin Yi warily. Finally, he said, "You are Lin Yi? You know me?" Lin Yi raised his eyebrows slightly. This guy tried everything to find out about the central headquarters just to work for you? Mute glanced at the shocked Big Brother Feng and continued to ask. That's right. Just to investigate a heaven stage perfect stage expert, you didn't hesitate to send an early stage foundation establishment expert. Moreover, you've been undercover for half a year. You're really the only one in the central headquarters to be this cautious. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Very good. Looks like my mission can end here. Mute suddenly laughed. In the past half a year, in order to gain Big Brother Feng's trust, a dignified early-stage foundation establishment expert like him had to run errands for someone else. If it wasn't for completing the mission, he would have already turned hostile and quit. Is that so? Then can you answer a question of mine? Don't worry, it's not a confidential question from the central headquarters. It's just to satisfy my curiosity. Seeing that the other party didn't make a move, Lin Yi asked, if I don't appear, how long will you be undercover here? A year. If there's no substantial evidence in a year, then he's innocent. Of course, there's no need for that now. As long as there's evidence, the undercover plan will automatically turn into a purge plan. Mute grinned. He was in a good mood at the moment and didn't mind answering this kind of unimportant question. Besides, everyone in this cruise ship branch, including Lin Yi and Big Brother Feng, was already a pile of dead people in his eyes. Of course, there was nothing to hide in front of dead people. Lin Yi and Big Brother Feng looked at each other and suddenly shook their heads regretfully. What a pity. What's a pity? A pity that you're going to be buried in the sea soon? Mute revealed a somewhat playful expression. He was a dignified early-stage foundation establishment expert. In this secular world, he was an invincible existence. He didn't think that anyone here could escape from his palm. It's a pity that I don't know the soul-searching technique. Otherwise, I should be able to learn a lot of useful things from you. Isn't that a pity? Lin Yi smiled as if nothing had happened. You can't be so naive to think that you can deal with me, right? Mute was immediately amused and sneered. Although I don't know how you saw through my realm, it doesn't mean anything. In the secular world, there has never been an expert who can fight against a foundation establishment expert. There hasn't been one in the past, and there won't be one in the future. Tisk, there's a limit to your ignorance. Now that the Archaic Alliance has appeared out of nowhere, there are foundation establishment experts everywhere. There are even Golden Core experts. You don't even know such a big thing. Don't you read books or read newspapers? Ignorance can kill people. Lin Yi said with a serious face. How is this possible? Mute was shocked when he heard that. In the past 6 months, he had not done anything other than focusing on being an undercover by Big Brother Feng's side. He had not even heard of the Archaic Alliance. Everything is possible. Be more careful in your next life. As Lin Yi said that, he suddenly slapped him. A dragon's roar sounded out of nowhere. Mute was shocked and wanted to jump off the ship to escape. Lin Yi was now unfathomable in his eyes. He didn't dare to act rashly before he had a clear idea of Lin Yi's strength. It didn't matter even if Lin Yi was stronger than him. As long as he escaped and sent the news back to the central headquarters, the experts from the headquarters would come to take care of him. He just needed to keep his life. Chapter 51:14. Plot. In the end, Mute didn't manage to escape Lin Yi's slap. The 5 elements killing aura was an absolute killer move for a foundation establishment realm master like him. After leaving a trail of blood in the air, he sank into the sea of corpses. It was easier to kill people on the high seas, and there was no need to destroy the corpses. Oh, boss, it's over just like that? Dafeng Bro couldn't help but gulp. His legs felt weak when he found out that Mute was a spy, especially when he heard that this guy was a Sky Dao stage master. He was scared out of his wits, and in the blink of an eye, he was slapped to death by Lin. This turn of events happened too quickly, and he couldn't accept it. What else can I do? Lin Yi glanced at him, thinking that although his sudden appearance had exposed Dafeng Bro, he'd also gotten rid of a huge problem for him. Coming here wasn't a mistake. Otherwise, if Dafeng Bro's contact with Wu Chintian was discovered by this guy in the future, and he wasn't there, that would be a real problem. That's too scary. The Central HQ actually sent out such a master just to investigate a small fry like me. They really think highly of me. Dafeng Bro trembled in fear and quickly smoked a cigarette to calm himself down. You should think about it carefully. See if there are any other suspicious people under you. If there are, take care of them quickly in case you lose your life in the future, Lin reminded him. Dafeng Bro frowned and thought carefully for a long time. He shook his head and said, No, there's only Mute among the newcomers these 2 years. The others are just insignificant people. Boss, can you help me take a look again? He was originally very confident, but after today's incident, he felt uneasy. What if there were other traitors hidden among the subordinates of the cruise branch? I saw these people on the cruise when I came up. They are all ordinary people. Even if they aren't very strong. They shouldn't be people from the Central HQ. It's not hard to understand. This time, the Central HQ sent out an early-stage Foundation Establishment Realm Master to investigate you. It's more than enough to send someone else. Your real problem is actually this Mute. Lin frowned slightly. Boss, are you saying that the Central Headquarters will still suspect me after he dies? Big Brother Feng was shocked again. That's right. We don't know how he got in contact with Central Headquarters, nor do we know what he reported before. With his death, Central Headquarters will definitely take action. However, the silver lining in the misfortune is that he is an early-stage Foundation Establishment expert. Lin Yi suddenly laughed. What do you mean? Big Brother Feng did not understand. With his early-stage Foundation Establishment strength, you guys definitely won't be able to kill him, so the center won't put the suspicion on you guys. It just so happens that the Archaic Alliance is training in the secular world. Only the Archaic Alliance has the strength to kill him, so the center's attention will be on the Archaic Alliance. Lin analyzed. I see. That's good. I really have to thank the Archaic Alliance for taking the blame for me. Big Brother Feng breathed a sigh of relief. But don't be too careless. Central Headquarters might send more people over. Try to keep a low profile from now on. Don't contact Wu Chention and the others if there's nothing important. Wait for everything to blow over first, Lin reminded. Don't worry, boss. Our Red Conches is a big force in the country. With the current situation, if Central Headquarters really wants to do something to me, it's the same as uprooting the entire branch. Unless they find concrete evidence, they won't do anything to me. Big Brother Feng finally regained his composure and patted his chest confidently. Yes, it's still the same thing. Be careful. Remember that. Lin reminded him again. No matter what, Big Brother Feng was already one of them. He didn't want anything to happen to him. Big Brother Feng nodded repeatedly. On the other hand, Lin was suspicious. Since when did Central Headquarters get an early-stage Foundation Establishment expert? It wouldn't be strange to say that this person was from the Archaic Alliance, but this was a spy sent half a year ago. With the spiritual energy in the mortal world, how could there be an early-stage Foundation Establishment expert? Boss Lin do you think I should use this opportunity to test the HQ's reaction? Dafeng Bro suddenly had an idea. Lin Yi's eyes lit up. This was indeed an opportunity. However, he immediately shook his head. This Mute is a spy sent by Central Headquarters. In theory, you don't know his identity. How are you going to report to Central Headquarters? There's no point in bringing it up. Instead, it will only increase the danger for you. Once Central Headquarters becomes suspicious of you, your situation won't be good. Since Central Headquarters had the ability to send an early-stage Foundation Establishment expert to infiltrate, it would be a piece of cake to take Big Brother Feng's life as long as they made up their mind. Yes, I know it's risky, but it's a rare opportunity. Don't you think so, boss? Big Brother Feng was still excited about his brilliant idea. Well, it's indeed a rare opportunity. What are you going to say? You can't say that you accidentally discovered the Mute's identity and accidentally killed this guy, right? Lin looked at him. Of course not. Boss, didn't you just mention the Archaic Alliance? I'll just push all the blame to the Archaic Alliance. Also, it's almost time for the routine report. It shouldn't be too abrupt to mention this to them, right? Big Brother Feng smiled confidently. That's right, but since we're going to do this, we have to design the wording. Even if it's not perfect, it has to at least be undetectable. Lin Yi pondered for a moment, and the corner of his mouth suddenly curled up. I have a good idea. Half an hour later, Dafeng Bro brought Lin Yi to his personal office. There was nothing else other than a desk and a computer. Big Brother Feng gave Lin Yi a look and turned on the computer. There was only one program on the desktop: Call Request. This was Big Brother Feng's only authority. He could request to report to Central Headquarters every month. Of course, the decision was not up to him. Whether he had this opportunity or not depended on the higher-ups. Chapter 51:15. 2 more days? Then maybe there's something wrong with my computer. The ship almost capsized a few days ago, and the water got in. The dates are probably wrong. Big Brother Dafeng scratched his head awkwardly. Lin Yi had already stood in the blind spot behind the computer to ensure that he wouldn't be seen by the other party. Almost capsized? How did you almost capsize? Didn't your cruise ship branch say that it's impregnable? Why can't you even deal with a natural disaster? The middle-aged man reprimanded in surprise. Sir, it's not a natural disaster this time. It's a man-made disaster. Big Brother Dafeng had a bitter face for a long time before he squeezed out a sentence. There's a monster. What did you say? Although the middle-aged man's face couldn't be seen clearly, he definitely didn't look good from his voice. At this moment, the words were written on his face. Are you fucking kidding me? It's true. A huge worm more than 10 meters long suddenly emerged from the water to eat people. It's very powerful. Our entire cruise ship branch was almost capsized by it. I've been at sea for a long time, but I've never seen such a ferocious and terrifying thing. I've never heard of it. Big Brother Dafeng's face was full of fear. Seeing that Big Brother Dafeng's expression didn't seem to be fake, the middle-aged man's voice softened a little. He asked, Tell me clearly, what kind of worm is it? I've never seen it before, but I think it's called something like a blood corpse worm. Big Brother Dafeng scratched his head. Blood corpse worm? The middle-aged man paused, and then his tone became suspicious. Since you've never seen it before, how do you know it's called a blood corpse worm? Because it's being controlled by someone. That person has been riding on its head from the beginning to the end. He claims to be from the Archaic Alliance, and he seems to be someone from the evil warding sect. Anyway, he looks very powerful. He even said that when this blood corpse worm really grows up, he can control the world. I think there might be something wrong with his head. Dafeng Bro explained everything in detail. Lin Yi had taught him all this, and instead of pushing the blame onto the Archaic Alliance, he might as well push the blame onto Sun Baishu. That would be perfect, and there'd be no evidence to back it up. Did you say the Primeval Alliance? The middle-aged man's tone turned solemn. It seemed like he'd heard of the Archaic Alliance before, and this wasn't out of Lin Yi's expectations. The center had such a huge power and information network in the common world, and the Archaic Alliance had caused such a huge commotion this time. It'd be weird if the headquarters hadn't heard anything about it. That's right. That person even shamelessly claimed to be a Heaven Dao stage expert, but he's just a fool. Aside from that big worm of his that's a little scary, his strength is simply a mess. Any ordinary subordinate on our side can easily kill him. To think that we were scared of him at first. Now that I think about it, it's simply too embarrassing. Big Brother Feng was very embarrassed and regretful. An ordinary subordinate killed him? The middle-aged man was shocked. Although the Central Command's headquarters wasn't here, and the Red Conch was the only real large-scale branch force in the country, it was obviously not strong enough. Therefore, it was difficult to obtain first-hand information in time. However, some basic information was still known. The disciples of the Archaic Alliance who came out to the secular world were indeed Heaven Dao stage experts. If Big Brother Dafeng wasn't lying, then the person who dealt with the Archaic Alliance's Heaven Dao stage expert wouldn't be an ordinary subordinate. It must be an expert of the corresponding level. He had already vaguely guessed who it was. Yes, it's a mute that I personally rescued half a year ago. Although he used to be a Special Forces soldier overseas, he's just an ordinary person. This kid is loyal and brave. At that time, we were so scared that we didn't dare to move, but he rushed up and fought with that guy without saying anything. The two of them and that big worm fought for a while in the sea, but in the end, no one floated up. We're probably all dead. It's a pity that it's not easy to find such a loyal subordinate. Big Brother Doffing sighed with regret. No one floated up? How could this be? Didn't you send someone to salvage them? The middle-aged man's voice suddenly became anxious. Boss, we made a lot of noise at the time. In order to escape, we fled from the high seas to the coast. After they sank, even the Coast Guard ship came over. We could only leave quickly, or we would be wiped out, Big Brother Fong said with a bitter face. Boss, we made a lot of noise at the time. The middle-aged man couldn't help but fall silent. Sir, I sent someone to sneak back the second day after the incident. There was nothing left. It must have been swept away by the tide. Big Brother Doffing said carefully. The middle-aged man was obviously a little hesitant. However, from Big Brother Doffing's point of view, there was nothing wrong with the way the matter was handled. Even as a superior, he couldn't casually ask questions for no reason. After all, Big Brother Doffing was the leader of Red Conk's branch in the country. For the Central Command, even if he wasn't a real feudal official, he was still a big figure. The middle-aged man was silent for a moment and suddenly said, "Wait a moment. I'll give you instructions later." Big Brother Doffing nodded, and then saw the other party cut off the communication. He finally breathed a sigh of relief. Lin Yi, who was standing in the opposite corner, looked at each other and smiled. Although he had rehearsed his words many times, when he actually said it, it still made him break out in a cold sweat. He was afraid that he would accidentally reveal some flaws. Fortunately, from the reaction of this person, he most likely believed it. Lin Yi also breathed a sigh of relief. Now that the bait was successfully cast, whether or not they could successfully catch a big fish depended on the other party's next actions and reactions. Everything was done, and the rest was up to fate. In the headquarters of the common world, after the middle-aged man cut off the communication with Big Brother Doffing, he quickly walked to a secret research room. At this time, a woman was currently observing the human experiment in the isolation room. If Wang Xinyan was here, she would definitely be shocked, because this woman was her roommate, Lan Xiaoru. Professor Lan, it's bad. The middle-aged man rushed in with a panicked expression. What are you panicking for, Professor Glasses? You're an old man here. You're not allowed to barge into the laboratory during the experiment. Have you forgotten this basic rule? Lan Xiaoru glared at the middle-aged man with dissatisfaction. Yes, I forgot myself. The professor couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Tell me, what's making you so panicked? Lan Xiaoru asked. The professor took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, something happened to number 1. Chapter 51:16. The number 1 they were talking about was Mute, who was working undercover beside Doffing. With number 1's early-stage foundation establishment realm strength, there should be no danger in doing such a small thing. That was why they sent him out with ease. Who would have thought that an early-stage foundation establishment realm expert would get into trouble? Was there really something wrong with Doffing? Lan Xiaoru was shocked. She had this suspicion since half a year ago. Although Big Brother Fong did not mention it openly, it was too obvious that he was trying all kinds of ways to inquire about the central headquarters. It was not strange for the branch members to have this kind of curiosity, but it was rare to see someone as proactive as him. With Lan Xiaoru's cautious and suspicious personality, she naturally had to do a thorough investigation. However, even if Doffing could control the entire Red Conch branch, it was impossible for him to deal with number 1 with his manpower and strength. After all, he was an early-stage foundation establishment realm expert. Even if he was outnumbered, he should at least be able to escape, right? According to Doffing's report, it said that it was done by a Heavenly Dao realm expert from the Archaic Alliance. That person even tamed a huge blood corpse bug. Number 1 fought with him in the sea, and after that, there was no trace of him. They probably died together. The Glasses doctor sighed. Archaic Alliance? How did they offend the Archaic Alliance? Lan Xiaoru frowned. In fact, Ever since she found out that the Archaic Alliance had appeared, she had been sending people to investigate the Archaic Alliance. Although she hadn't made any direct contact, she still knew a lot of things through various channels. She couldn't help but ask doubtfully, "Why did I hear that the people from the Archaic Alliance have been summoned back?" I didn't ask in detail. I only heard that person seemed to be from the evil warding sect. He should be one of the few cultivators that the Archaic Alliance left outside. The doctor in glasses speculated. Maybe. Lan Xiaoru's expression was unfathomable. After a moment of silence, she snorted, "Damn it. In the first batch of 10, only one succeeded. Now the second batch has encountered a bottleneck because they couldn't find a suitable test subject. I didn't expect that the only surviving number 1 would get into trouble. How do you want me to explain this to the higher-ups?" "Dr. Lan, I have an idea." The doctor in glasses suddenly smiled. "What idea?" Lan Xiaoru looked at him and asked. "With the conditions in the secular world, finding a suitable experimental subject is like looking for a needle in a haystack. This is the key reason why we've encountered a bottleneck, but don't we have a ready-made target now?" The bespectacled doctor smiled sinisterly. "You mean the Archaic Alliance?" Lan Xiaoru frowned. "That's right, Professor Lan. Think about it carefully. Our mission is to mass-produce Foundation establishment experts, and it would be best if we could achieve that in the secular world. But since we've reached a bottleneck, there's no harm in changing our thinking. If we can find a way to get a Foundation establishment expert from the Archaic Alliance, it'll be much easier to control him than to make one ourselves, right?" The bespectacled doctor adjusted his trademark black-rimmed glasses. "Go on," Lan Xiaoru said calmly. "As long as we can control the first one, it'll be much easier to get the second and third. That way, it won't be long before we can control a large number of Foundation establishment experts. This way, not only will we be able to fulfill the requirements of the higher-ups, but we might even be able to go one step further and start mass production of Golden Core experts. After all, those people are from the Archaic Alliance, and their qualities will definitely be much better than the cultivators in the secular world. With them as the experimental subjects, the success rate will definitely be much higher." The more the bespectacled doctor spoke, the more excited he became. In his opinion, this was a genius idea. That's not a bad idea. Lan Xiaoru couldn't help but feel a little tempted when she heard this. She was very clear that mass-producing Foundation establishment experts was only the first step. The next step was to continue mass-producing Golden Core experts. With the conditions of the secular world's experimental samples, even Foundation establishment experts would be hard to satisfy, let alone Golden Core experts. For their experiments, the quality of the samples was the most crucial factor in determining success or failure. The same experiment method could easily succeed on Heavenly Island, but it wouldn't work in the secular world. No matter how much they improved it, the success rate would never increase. In the end, it was because the quality of the samples was too poor. They couldn't compare to Heavenly Island at all. But now, the Archaic Alliance suddenly appeared. Even if their strength couldn't compare to Heavenly Island, it was much, much higher than the secular world. This was practically a ready-made human body material delivered to their doorstep. "Professor Lan, the second batch of human experiments has been at a stalemate for half a year now, and there hasn't been any substantial progress. Even if the higher-ups don't say anything, they will definitely be dissatisfied in private. We need to produce results urgently," the bespectacled doctor urged. "But this matter with the Archaic Alliance is no small matter. If the news gets out, it will be a huge threat to our headquarters. This matter must be reported to the higher-ups and discussed. We can't act rashly." Lan Xiaoru finally managed to maintain her rationality. This kind of thing would cause a huge mess if she were to act rashly. "This matter is of great importance. We definitely have to ask the higher-ups." The bespectacled doctor quickly agreed. "Right, transfer Dafeng over. He's the branch's leader, and he has been in direct contact with the Archaic Alliance. He should know some useful information. Have a good chat with him," Lan Xiaoru ordered. The bespectacled doctor nodded. As for his previous suspicions about Dafeng, he temporarily put them aside. After all, Number 1 had been investigating for half a year without finding anything substantial. It could be seen that there shouldn't be any problems with this person. Not to mention, even if he was transferred to the central headquarters, he wouldn't have access to any core secrets. Even if there was a problem, it wouldn't be a problem. A moment later, the bespectacled doctor conveyed Lan Xiaoru's order. Dafeng couldn't help but be overjoyed when he heard it. It was just a flash of inspiration, but he didn't expect that he would actually be able to deceive the other party. Even Lin Yi didn't expect things to go so smoothly. He had always wanted to inquire about the various matters of the central headquarters. Now that Dafeng was directly transferred to the central headquarters because of this matter, he could easily obtain first-hand information. This was truly a pleasant surprise. Chapter 51:17. Got it, boss. I value my life, so I definitely won't do anything stupid. Boss Lin Yi, just wait for my good news. Big Brother Dafeng patted his chest. Lin Yi could not help but worry when he saw Big Brother Dafeng's careless look. However, Big Brother Dafeng was a meticulous person, and he had a lot of social experience. He should have no problem protecting himself if he was careful. Lin Yi did not need to worry. While the central headquarters private plane had not arrived, Lin Yi explained some things about the Archaic Alliance to Big Brother Dafeng. It was foreseeable that the people at the central headquarters would definitely ask about these things. If Big Brother Dafeng acted like he did not know anything, it meant that he had lost his value. At that time, not only would it be difficult to investigate deeper core secrets, but his own safety would also become difficult to guarantee. After all, worthless trash had no human rights to speak of. Of course, Lin Yi couldn't tell him too much, or it'd look unnatural if he accidentally spilled the beans. What he could and couldn't know was up to him. Only he could help Dafeng Bro check on these things. Everything was ready. 2 hours later, a helicopter appeared above the cruise ship. Big Brother Dafeng and Lin Yi, who was hiding in the dark, looked at each other, took a deep breath, and climbed the rope ladder. The helicopter did not stop for long and soon became a small black dot. A helicopter? Is the central headquarters not far from this place? Lin Yi could not help but be a little surprised, but he immediately overturned his thoughts. Although the helicopter's flight radius was very limited, no one said that this helicopter would take Big Brother Dafeng to the central headquarters. Maybe it was just the first stop. It turned out that Lin Yi's speculation was right. The helicopter was indeed just the first stop. After Big Brother Dafeng was dropped directly into an open space in the deep forest, a small transport plane soon appeared above his head. It was a military transport plane with vertical takeoff and landing capabilities. This equipment really shocked Big Brother Dafeng. However, on second thought, the central headquarters was so unpredictable, this level was just a piece of cake. After the transport plane landed, the hatch opened automatically. It was a completely enclosed room. Although there were some entertainment facilities such as televisions, there was not even a window to look outside. Brother Dafeng deliberately waited outside for a long time. He wanted to get close to the pilot. If he was lucky, he might be able to get some useful information in advance, such as the specific location of the central headquarters. In the end, the pilot didn't arrive. Instead, an electronic voice kept urging him to board the plane. Brother Dafeng was stunned for a moment before sneaking around to the high slope in front of him to take a look. Only then did he realize that this was a freaking unmanned vehicle. No wonder no one had come down to greet him for a long time. Brother Dafeng had no choice but to board the plane. Sure enough, as soon as he walked into the room, his phone signal instantly turned to 0. Even the satellite navigation was useless. He originally wanted to use this method to record the route and the central headquarters location, but it seemed like he was overthinking it. After flying for half a day, Big Brother Feng fell asleep. When he woke up, the plane had already landed. When Big Brother Feng walked out of the hatch and took a look, he was stunned again. His phone still had no signal, and the satellite navigation was still useless. There was no topography in front of him that could help him determine his location because this was an underground airport. You are Dafeng, right? Come with me, Dr. Glasses is waiting for you. A man in a white assistant uniform came over and said, "Oh, okay." Brother Dauphin quickly followed. Although he didn't know who Dr. Glasses was, he could basically guess. It was most likely his superior. He followed the man through the airport and entered the elevator. A moment later, the elevator door opened. Brother Dauphin looked at the busy scene in front of him and rubbed his eyes. He asked subconsciously, "This is the central headquarters?" "That's right. This is the central headquarters." The man nodded. Over the past few years, Big Brother Fong had fantasized about what the data center's headquarters would look like countless times. In his mind, for such an unfathomable organization like the data center, the headquarters must be a place where all the heroes gathered, and anyone who passed by must be a notorious fiend. However, the scene in front of him was completely different. It was a huge hall. All kinds of people came and went, men and women, old and young. The only thing they had in common was that almost all of them were wearing white lab coats. All of them seemed very busy. Even when they were walking, they were talking to each other. It sounded very academic and profound. Above each exit around the hall, the name of the area was marked: Human, Biochemistry, Intelligence, Weapons. Obviously, these were the research directions of each area. Brother Dauphin couldn't help but swallow his saliva. This was not the central headquarters he imagined. It was simply a cutting-edge scientific research base. "Let's go." Dr. Glass's patience is limited. The man urged in front. "But are we all researchers here?" Brother Dauphin casually probed. "This floor is in charge of scientific research. I don't know what other departments or people there are, but they must be on other floors. Unless there are special circumstances, you can't go to other floors at will. Of course, you can't just walk around the various experimental areas on this floor. I think Dr. Glasses will give you a pass later. You can go and you can go. Swipe the pass and you will know," the man explained. "Okay." Brother Dauphin couldn't help but be a little disappointed. It seemed that even if he came to the central headquarters, it would not be easy to find out valuable core information. The man brought Brother Dauphin to the door of a research room. After swiping the pass and entering, Brother Dauphin saw a middle-aged man wearing huge black-rimmed glasses. He was dark and thin, but his eyes were extremely sinister and sharp. "Okay, go do what you need to do. Sample number 7's condition is a little unstable. Go and give him a bottle of tranquilizer." The bespectacled doctor instructed and then turned to Brother Dauphin. "Dauphin, this is your first time coming to the central headquarters. What do you think?" Hearing this familiar hoarse voice, Brother Dauphin was sure that the other party was indeed his superior. He quickly said respectfully, reporting to the superior, "It feels different from what I expected. It looks like a scientific research base." "Yes, this is a scientific research base. Do you know why I transferred you here?" The bespectacled doctor smiled. I don't know." Brother Dauphin shook his head. Chapter 51:18. Really? Thank you for the promotion. This subordinate will definitely go through fire and water, and will not hesitate to die. Big Brother Fong had seen this kind of scene many times before, and his grateful expression was very good. It's not that serious. Just do your job well." The doctor smiled with satisfaction and said, "All right, let's get down to business. Tell me everything you know about the Archaic Alliance, especially the encounter with the expert from the evil warding sect. Don't miss anything, understand?" Big Brother Fong quickly nodded. According to what Linny had told him before, Dauphin quietly revealed some things about the Archaic Alliance. The glasses doctor's eyes lit up after listening to it. He secretly thought that Miss Lon really had foresight. Although what Dauphin said was not difficult to find out and was not as comprehensive as the central headquarters, there were some details that had never been noticed and were very valuable. "Sir, that's all I know." Big Brother Feng's expression was very honest. "Good, very good. The things you said are very useful. Stay here and be my assistant," the doctor said with satisfaction. "Assistant? Oh, then what should I do next?" Big Brother Dauphin quickly asked. Aside from the specific location of the central headquarters, what he wanted to figure out the most at the moment was the so-called Primordial Research Group. However, he had just arrived here, so he couldn't just ask about these things. Haste makes waste, so he had to take things step by step. There's no rush. Familiarize yourself here for 2 days. I will tell you if there are any missions. This is your pass. Your room number is written on it. Go and rest for a while. Remember not to wander around. You only have the basic access right now. Other than my room in the public living area, you can't go anywhere else, the doctor said. Understood. Big Brother Feng saluted with a serious expression. Don't be so serious. This is a research base, not a combat base. Just be natural. The doctor smiled and turned to leave. It seemed that he had obtained a lot of valuable information from Big Brother Feng. He was in a good mood. The doctor was in a good mood. However, Big Brother Feng was not in a good mood. Although everything had gone smoothly so far, at least he had not revealed any flaws. Judging from the other party's attitude, he had already gained the initial trust and knew that he was about to join the primordial research group. Everything looked perfect, but the problem was that they didn't get any substantial information at all. What was even more troublesome was that even if he managed to find out the key information, there was no way for him to pass it to Linny. All signals in this place were blocked, and no one was allowed to walk around. What could he do? Damn, I can only take it one step at a time, Brother Dofeng muttered. He took the pass and began to wander around. However, he had to familiarize himself with the places that he could go first. As for the places that he couldn't enter, he would think of a way later. What Dofeng Bro didn't know was that from the moment he entered the HQ, his every move was under surveillance. Fortunately, he listened to Lin Yi's advice and acted cautiously, or else he would have been caught a long time ago. On the other side, the doctor ran to Lan Xiaoru excitedly to report the situation. However, as soon as he entered the door, he saw Lan Xiaoru fuming. The reason was simple. The second batch of experimental samples was wiped out again. Dr. Lan, it has been proven that this path is not working. It's time for us to change our way of thinking, the doctor advised. Lan Xiaoru was silent for a moment. After she suppressed all her anger, she slowly said, I have already reported to the higher-ups. The higher-ups mean that this is not a trivial matter and we must be careful. Does that mean we are not allowed to do it? The doctor was a little disappointed. The center never kept idle people. If they wanted to truly gain a foothold in the central headquarters or even move up a level, they must have results that could be taken care of. However, there was no future in this situation. It's not that we can't do it. We just have to be careful. If anything goes wrong, you and I will have to take full responsibility, Lan Xiaoru said lightly. What do you mean, Dr. Lan? The doctor looked at her. I was still hesitating, but there is no other choice now that things have come to this. Lan Xiaoru looked at the annihilated second batch of experimental bodies and sighed. Although the overall strength of the secular world couldn't compare to that of Heaven Stage Island, it was still an important part of the organization. If the secular world didn't make any progress, it would drag down the expansion of the entire organization. At this point, they had no choice but to take the risk. Dr. Lan, rest assured. I just obtained a lot of valuable information from Dofeng. As long as we plan carefully, there won't be any problems, the doctor quickly said. Lan Xiaoru nodded and said, Okay, go and gather all the top 10 doctors here. I want them in every field. I want to form an archaic research group. What about Dofeng? The doctor asked. Lan Xiaoru thought for a moment and said, Give him a peripheral position first. He has some understanding of the Archaic Alliance and is also the leader of the Red Conch branch. He should be of some use. The doctor nodded repeatedly. 10 minutes later, everyone was gathered in the first conference room. Even Dofeng, who had just arrived, was called over as a peripheral researcher. However, he was sitting at the very edge. Looking at Lan Xiaoru and the other core members of the central headquarters, Dofeng couldn't help feeling excited. Just taking pictures of these people was a rare and important piece of information. Unfortunately, he didn't dare to do so. Even a fool knew that there would be all kinds of surveillance cameras here. If he made the slightest movement, he would be courting death. Not to mention, even if he took pictures, he wouldn't be able to send them out. But in any case, it was already a delightful harvest for Dafeng to be able to enter this conference room. As long as he patiently lurked here, it was only a matter of time before he obtained the key information. Everyone, the Archean Research Group is officially established from today onwards. This is a crucial project that concerns the future of our central headquarters. The success or failure of this project rests on everyone's shoulders. I hope everyone will do their best. Lan Xiaoru made the introductory remarks. Dr. Lan, what is the main topic of the Archaic Research Group? Someone raised his hand and asked. It's very simple. Capture the cultivators of the Archaic Alliance and use biotechnology to brainwash them. We will use them for our own purposes. Lan Xiaoru bluntly said. Chapter 51:19. He had already learned a lot about the Archaic Alliance from Lin Yi, so he naturally knew what kind of existence the Archaic Alliance was. He didn't expect that the central headquarters would actually target these people. Their courage was simply out of this world. What kind of existence is the Archaic Alliance? These professors had always been focused on their own research, so only a few of them had a specific concept of the so-called Archaic Alliance. The summary of the information about the Archaic Alliance has been sent to your computers. You will know the details once you take a look. Lan Xiaoru pointed to the laptops in front of everyone. In fact, many people were already looking at it long before she said this. However, not all of them had this kind of treatment. At least, the peripheral researchers sitting at the edge didn't have this kind of treatment. Seeing this, Big Brother Feng couldn't help but feel pity. Otherwise, he could find out how much these people knew about the Archaic Alliance. This way, he would have more confidence in his words and actions in the future. At least the Foundation establishment stage? Since the Archaic Alliance's cultivators are so strong, with our strength here, I'm afraid we won't be able to deal with them, right? Someone immediately questioned. Yes, and they are all gathered together now. There is no chance of making a move. Others also shook their heads. Everyone, even if they are Foundation establishment stage experts, as long as we plan carefully, it is not impossible to pick the weakest among them. As for them being gathered together, it is not a bad thing for our plan. On the contrary, it is a great thing for us. Lan Xiaoru smiled slightly. What do you mean? Everyone was puzzled. It's very simple. Although most of them are gathered together, not all of them have been summoned back. There are still some people who are active in the secular world. These people are basically acting alone, so they are the best candidates for us to target. On the contrary, if all of them were moving normally, then we would have to consider it carefully, because that means that it is very likely that they will help each other. And right now, there are not many people moving around outside, and they are scattered all over the place. As long as we target them, we won't be able to call for help even if we call for help. Lan Xiaoru said confidently. Professor Lan, may I ask how we can deal with the Foundation establishment stage experts of the Archaic Alliance? I heard that the first test subject that succeeded the first time has been killed. Can the Heavenly Island send reinforcements? Someone immediately asked. That is impossible. The teleportation channel that connects here to the Heavenly Island can only send dead objects. The success rate of sending living people is very low. It is not reliable to pin our hopes on such a small probability. Someone immediately shook his head and objected. Everyone was talking, and Big Brother Feng, who was sitting on the edge, was dumbfounded. Although the central headquarters definitely had the means to travel between Heaven Island and the secular world, which had been confirmed by the previous letter, he was still shocked when he heard it with his own ears. The strength of the central headquarters was really amazing. We don of the Heavenly Island's reinforcements. We have the ability ourselves. Lan Xiaoru paused and slowly swept her gaze around the room. She spat out 3 words, Hunter Team. As soon as he said that, everyone fell silent. Brother Dafeng did not understand what he meant, but the core doctors of the central headquarters knew the weight of these 3 words very well. This was because every one of them would immediately equip this mysterious team with their latest research results. This was a card that the central headquarters rarely played, a trump card. Hengshui City was a small but bustling coastal city. In every aspect, Heng Shui City was on a completely different level from the other cities, but it was extremely famous for one thing. This was also the source of its prosperity, the prostitutes on the outskirts. This was the concentration camp of the prostitutes in the country, and also a paradise for the upper class. Finding prostitutes was the practice of country bumpkins. After reaching a certain level, if you really wanted to find a woman, you would definitely look for a prostitute. Be it their appearance or temperament, they were not something an ordinary prostitute could compare to. Of course, the price was naturally not something an ordinary prostitute could compare to. The Shuiheng building, as a landmark of Shuiheng City, was a paradise of paradise. Those who entered and exited this place were either rich or noble. Only the top prostitutes were qualified to accompany them. Ordinary people could not even enter the door. However, on this day, the top floor of the Shuiheng building was booked by a super-rich second-generation heir. He only had one guest, a man in red who looked to be in his 20s or 30s. "Young Master you haven't been here for a long time. Why are you suddenly in the mood today? Why didn't you call earlier? We could have dressed up a little." A few prostitutes in extremely simple clothes pushed the door open and laughed. Each and every one of them was charming, pure, sexy, and cute. They were all top-notch beauties that were rarely seen in the outside world. "Why you guys so slow? You made us wait for a few minutes. Hurry up and apologize to Big Brother Jing." Young Master Yu waved his hand and at the same time turned to the man in red and said, "Big Brother Jing, what do you think of them?" The man in red looked at the prostitutes lecherously. He nodded and shook his head. Not bad, but they're still lacking a little." "Lacking a little?" Young Master Yu was stunned for a moment. He looked at the scene of the man in red taking advantage of the prostitutes and immediately understood. "I understand. I'll call a few more over." The prostitutes were all perceptive people. Seeing that young Master Yu was so respectful to the man in red, they knew that he must have a great background. They immediately became even more attentive and asked in a coquettish voice, "Big Brother Jing, where are you from?" "Thousand Blade Sect." The red-clothed man grinned as he embraced the women and molested them without restraint. He looked like a hungry lecher. "The Thousand Blade Sect? What kind of place is that? I've never heard of it." "Big Brother Jing, you didn't just randomly make up a place to fool us, did you?" The prostitutes laughed and flattered him, but they were also confused. The man in red laughed. He really wasn't making this up. His name was Jing Taiyang, and he was an expert from the Immemorial Alliance's Thousand Blades sect. The Thousand Blades sect had always been strict. He didn't have the chance to get close to women in the Immemorial Alliance. Now that he had finally come to the secular world, he naturally wanted to enjoy himself. Chapter 51:20. A moment later, a young woman wearing a sexy short qipao walked in as if there was no one else around. Jing Taiyang was instantly stunned. This woman was pure and charming in one. Young Master Yu was also drooling, but he couldn't help but ask with some doubt, "Who are you? Why haven't I seen you before?" "Xiaonu is called Hong Yang." As the young woman spoke, she walked straight towards Jing Ting. Jing Tiang hurriedly pushed away the women around him to make way for her. Although these women were also pretty good-looking, they couldn't be compared to this matchmaker. Young Master Yu couldn't help but feel pity. Any man wouldn't let go of such a high-quality girl, but he didn't dare to compete with Jing Taiyang. He had seen Jing Taiyang's strength with his own eyes. A local century-old clan had 3 legendary experts, but Jing Taiyang walked over and slashed their necks with a knife. That action and attitude were no different from killing chickens, and the reason was just because the 3 of them blocked his way. This was a super strong man. Hong Yang stuck to Jing Taiyang's side as if she had no bones. She gently scratched his chest with her fingernails and whispered in his ear, "Big Brother Jing, do you know any other friends here?" "Friends? My martial brothers are all in Shenangjia. How can I have friends here? Fortunately, they are not here. Otherwise, such a stunning beauty like you might not be my turn." Jing Taiyang laughed without any scruples. "Is that so? Then Xiaonu can rest assured." Hong Yang smiled mysteriously and used a little strength in her hand. Her fingernails immediately scratched a shallow wound on Jing Taiyang's chest. She licked her tongue in an extremely charming manner and said, "Does it hurt?" "Huh, it doesn't hurt. It's a small matter." Jing Taiyang still attacked Hong Yang lustfully. As a cultivator, getting injured was a common thing, especially since the Thousand Blades sex cultivation method was special. They would get injured every few days, so they were already used to it. This little wound was nothing to them. However, just as she finished speaking, Jing Taiyang's eyes suddenly became dazzled. The qi in his body actually began to stagnate. He suddenly quivered and forced himself to stand up. Even if he was a perverted ghost, he also realized that there was something wrong with this woman. "You? Who the hell are you?" Jing Taiyang's footsteps were a bit unsteady as he pointed at Hong Yang and asked. "TSK, as expected of an early-stage Foundation establishment expert from the Archaic Alliance. You're actually able to stand up after taking our latest biochemical medicine. Amazing." Hong Yang's expression was unfathomable as she smiled. At the same time, the floor-to-ceiling window on the side shattered with a bang, and 4 black-clothed men flew in one after the other. Each of them was a heaven-stage Great Perfection expert, and without saying a word, they surrounded Jing Taiyang. As for young Master Yu and the other women, they didn't even have time to scream before they were instantly silenced. This scene happened so suddenly that Jing Taiyang was completely unprepared. As an early-stage Foundation establishment expert from the Archaic Alliance, he should have been an invincible existence in the secular world. Who would have thought that he would become someone else's prey? Including Hong Yang, there were a total of 5 heaven-stage Great Perfection experts surrounding him. Normally, Jing Taiyang would definitely scoff at this. Although there was only 1 level difference between the early-stage Foundation establishment and the heaven-stage Great Perfection experts, the difference between them was like heaven and earth. In particular, Jing Taiyang was a core disciple of the Thousand Blades sect, and his strength was outstanding among the experts of the same level. Not to mention 1 against 5, 1 against 10 was a piece of cake. However, his current situation was really not optimistic. He was blinded by lust, and was poisoned by Hong Yang's biochemical medicine. The qi in his body became stagnant. At this moment, it was difficult for him to even stand, so how much strength could he have? "Who the hell are you?" Jing Taiyang once again opened his mouth with difficulty. "You really don't want to give up. At this time, you still want to talk nonsense to buy time, and still want to escape from under our hands?" Hong Yang simply ignored his question and directly signaled everyone to attack together. Although the plan was already in the bag at this step, Jing Taiyang was an early-stage Foundation establishment expert after all. No one knew what other powerful and fatal trump cards he was hiding, so they must not relax until the last moment. As the trump card group that the headquarters of the secular world valued most, every member of the hunter group was the super elite of the super elite. The strength of the heaven stage Great Perfection was only the minimum threshold, and the other aspects must be the most top-notch existence. The most important reference condition was the temperament. It was simply a fool's dream to expect them to underestimate the enemy and make a big mistake. Seeing these people directly attack without hesitation, Jing Taiyang's heart suddenly sank. As Hong Yang said, he really thought so. He didn't know what the biochemical medicine was, but he could roughly guess that it must be some kind of poison, and it should not be directly fatal, but it could only block the circulation of the qi in the body. Of course, for an early-stage Foundation establishment expert like him, this poison was actually no different from a fatal one. With his qi blocked, he could not exert his strength at all, and in front of the opponent he was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. However, he did not intend to be captured so easily. His strategy of stalling time was seen through by the opponent. Jing Taiyang clenched his teeth and suddenly raised his hand to wave at the nearest Hong Yang. Out of nowhere, a soft sword of neither long nor short appeared in his hand. In this situation he could not mobilize much qi, but this sword was still enough to turn the situation around. Every disciple of the Thousand Blades sect was a weapon master, and the sword was the leader of all weapons. Even if Jing Taiyang's sword art was not at the master level, it was definitely at a higher level. The most important thing was that this sword came very suddenly. The biochemical medicine was the main culprit of his current desperate situation, but at this moment, it also became the best cover for him. No matter how good the psychological quality of the Central Hunter group was, when faced with a target that was hit, they would subconsciously relax a little. This was a human's instinct. Good sword art, but unfortunately, it is not fast enough. At the last moment, Hong Yang grabbed the blade with one hand. It looked like she was wearing an ordinary glove, but it was one of the latest products of the central headquarters, and it was enough to deal with any cold weapon attack. Jing Taiyang's face darkened. If the qi in his body could circulate normally, Hong Yang would have been a dead person at this time. Unfortunately, there was no if in this world. Without the support of the most important qi, his sword art was useless. No matter how good it was, whether it was speed or power, it was far from enough. After all, the opponent was an expert at the heaven stage great perfection, not an ordinary person. Chapter 51:21. However, at this moment, a silver needle that was hard to see with the naked eye suddenly silently pierced Hong Yang's neck from behind. It was glowing with a faint green light, clearly carrying a highly toxic poison. Looking at Hong Yang's oblivious expression, Jing Taiyang was overjoyed. Success! The symbol of the Thousand Blades sect had never been a single weapon, but the legendary Thousand Blades shooting at the same time. Even for an early-stage foundation establishment expert like Jing Taiyang, it was common for him to control 7 or 8 blades at the same time in battle. Now that his true qi was obstructed, the 8 blades shooting at the same time, which he was most adept at, was no longer possible. However, relying on the meager amount of true qi that he could barely mobilize, it was enough for him to control a tiny poisonous needle. Go to hell. Seeing that he was about to succeed, Jing Taiyang's mouth couldn't help but curl up. No matter what, it was an unforgivable shame for an early-stage foundation establishment expert like him to fall into the hands of a secular world organization. Instead of waiting to be captured, it was better for him to die. Moreover, it wasn't impossible for him to escape. As long as he could successfully kill Hong Yang, Jing Taiyang would be able to deter the other 4 people. At the very least, he would be able to create chaos, and perhaps he would have a chance to escape. Ding! A crisp sound of metal colliding caused Jing Taiyang's heart to sink to the bottom. Whether it was Hong Yang or the other 4 people, none of them were aware of his small action. The poison needle had indeed successfully hit Hong Yang's neck, but unfortunately, it didn't penetrate her skin. How is this possible? Jing Taiyang couldn't help but be stunned. He simply couldn't imagine why Hong Yang's skin was made of metal. One of the latest research results of the central headquarters was tempered skin. As a member of the Ancient Alliance, he would never be able to understand it. Hong Yang didn't answer. She turned sideways and directly kneed him. Feeling the sharp pain coming from his abdomen, Jing Taiyang instantly curled up like a shrimp and flew out. Opportunity! Jing Taiyang endured the pain and his eyes lit up. Even in this situation, he didn't give up the idea of escaping. Borrowing the momentum from Hong Yang's kick, he suddenly rushed out of the floor-to-ceiling window. Jumping from the 24th floor of the Shuiheng building was tantamount to courting death, but he was an early-stage foundation establishment expert from the Ancient Alliance. How could he die so easily? However, it turned out that Jing Taiyang was thinking too much. The moment he rushed out of the French window, the 4 black-clothed men moved at the same time. A giant net then firmly covered him and then tightened. When he was pulled out again, his whole body had been squeezed into a ball, completely unable to move. Hong Yang looked at this scene expressionlessly. She spoke into the communication device implanted in her head. The target has been captured successfully. Hunter Group, return to the team. One day later, Hong Yang and the other 4 returned to the central headquarters. Jing Taiyang was sent to the laboratory as soon as he got off the plane. A group of mad scientists had already been waiting for him, their prey. This was the first sample of the ancient research group since its establishment. As a peripheral researcher, Brother Dafeng was not qualified to enter the core laboratory, but he could see from afar. Looking at the unconscious Jing Taiyang, he couldn't help but be shocked. Even an early-stage foundation establishment expert was captured. The central headquarters was really cruel. He was very anxious now. Ever since he learned about the purpose of the Ancient Research Group, he knew that it was absolutely a great event for both the Ancient Alliance and the secular world. Judging from the way the central headquarters operated, the possibility of success was extremely high. Once a large number of Ancient Alliance experts were controlled, not only would it have a huge impact on the Ancient Alliance, but it would also inevitably affect the secular world. More specifically, it would inevitably involve Lin. Therefore, no matter what, he had to pass this information to Lin Yi as soon as possible. But the problem was that he was now trapped in the central headquarters and couldn't move around, let alone communicate with the outside world. How could he pass the information? As the most important and core plan of the central headquarters in the secular world, the moment Jing Taiyong was transported back, the entire central headquarters was completely busy. Lan Xiaoru personally led the glasses doctor and the others into action. This was the first step of the ancient plan, and there was no room for error. At the same time, the hunter group led by Hong Yang was not idle. They were analyzing the information and looking for the next target. If they could find a second single early-stage foundation establishment expert like Jing Tiang, as long as the plan was as thorough as this time, the possibility of them failing was very small. Of course, if the other party's strength was stronger than the early-stage foundation establishment, then they would have to wait until they completely controlled Jing Taiyong before acting together. With their strength at the peak of heaven stage, capturing an early-stage foundation establishment expert was already their limit. It was very difficult to have any confidence in capturing someone stronger than this. 2 days later, the hunter group locked onto the target and attacked again. The target was the early-stage foundation establishment, and they succeeded. 3 days later, the hunter group attacked again, but this time they brought Jing Taiyong, who had been completely brainwashed by the central headquarters. The target was the early-stage foundation establishment, and they succeeded. Another 3 days later, the hunter group, together with Jing Taiyong and 2 other successfully brainwashed early-stage foundation establishment experts, attacked again. The target was the peak early-stage foundation establishment, and they succeeded. In less than 10 days, 4 experts of the Archaic Alliance had fallen into the hands of the central headquarters. One was at the peak of the early-stage foundation establishment realm, and the other 3 were at the early-stage foundation establishment realm. Such an astonishing efficiency left Brother Dafeng dumbfounded. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before the Archaic Alliance experts scattered in the secular world were like turtles in a jar. Not only that, but what shocked Brother Dafeng even more was that after these foundation establishment experts fell into the control of the central headquarters, they could actually increase their strength rapidly in just a few days. He still didn't know that this technology was already very mature for the central headquarters. The secular world was just using the basic technology of Heaven Stage Island. From the beginning, what limited the strength of the central headquarters in the secular world was not the technology, but the experimental samples. As long as the experimental samples had a strong enough foundation and potential, with their technology and resources, they could create a large number of foundation establishment experts in a very short period of time. Now that the ancient plan had been launched, and after obtaining these foundation establishment experts from the Ancient Alliance, it was only natural for them to increase their strength. After witnessing this series of terrifying developments, Big Brother Dafeng was now horrified. If this continued, the Archaic Alliance and the secular world would not just suffer a blow. Even as a peripheral researcher who occasionally helped out, Big Brother Dafeng could more or less sense the ambition of the central headquarters. That woman, Lan Xiaoru, was definitely after something big. The more he sensed all this, the more anxious Brother Dafeng became. However, no matter how anxious he was, it was useless. He had no chance to send a message. In fact, Brother Dafeng was not the only one who was anxious. Linny was also very anxious. He was at a loss about everything that had happened recently. After all, the Ancient Alliance experts scattered all over the secular world were extremely secretive. Not only could the Ancient Alliance not contact them, but even the Supernatural Investigation Bureau could not find any traces of them. The Central Hunter Group had always been meticulous, so he naturally did not notice them. Lin Yi was most worried that Brother Dafeng would reveal a flaw in the central headquarters. In order to be able to receive him at any time, he specially stayed nearby. In the end, after half a month, there was still no news of Brother Dafeng. Did something happen to him? In the transfer station of the primordial passage, there was a flash of light, and a young man dressed in white suddenly appeared in the transmission array. His eyes were cold and without the slightest hint of emotion, giving off the feeling that he was an emotionless ice man, causing people to feel fear at first sight. Chapter 51-22. Her name was Bing Wuqing. In terms of age, she was not much older than Xue Jianfeng. In fact, she was even a few years younger. However, her strength was there for all to see. Even Xue Jianfeng could only pinch his nose and call her Uncle Master. The so-called number 1 Foundation Establishment Cultivator of the Archaic Alliance was nothing in front of Bing Wuqing, because that title was left over from her playing. 2 generations of the number 1 Foundation Establishment Cultivators had come from the Snow Sword faction. From this point alone, the Snow Sword faction's foundation was indeed extraordinary. In the entire Archaic Alliance, it was a top-notch existence among the 10 small sects and clans. If they had 1 or 2 more nascent soul cultivators, it would not be impossible for them to challenge the 4 major sects and clans. However, this was not a good thing for Xue Jianfeng. He had always considered himself the successor of the Snow Sword faction. With such an Uncle Master above him, no matter who it was, they would not be in a good mood. If it was possible, Xue Jianfeng would definitely not let the higher-ups send such an Uncle Master. It was a pity that his father was only the deputy head of the Snow Sword faction. Although his status and power in the Snow Sword faction were not low, it was far from the point where he could cover the sky with one hand. Moreover, Kuld's master was not an ordinary person. He would definitely try to argue for what was right. In the end, the Snow Sword faction sent Bing Wuqing, who was more neutral, to balance the situation. Bing Wuqing looked at Xue Jianfeng expressionlessly and said in a cold voice, "From today onwards, all the disciples of the Snow Sword faction who are training are under my command. You are no longer the leader." "Yes, I understand." Xue Jianfeng nodded hurriedly. He did not dare to be presumptuous in front of Bing Wuqing. Moreover, this was his suggestion from the beginning. Ever since he fought with Lin Yi, he knew that he had no hope of revenge with his own strength. Therefore, he could only think of a way to ask for help from the Snow Sword faction. Of course, this wasn't something they could ask for help just because they wanted to. If there wasn't a good reason, then they wouldn't be able to get past the Archaic Alliance. The reason Xue Jianfeng gave was that his dantian had been crippled, and there was no one among the disciples of the Snow Sword School who could take his place as the eldest senior disciple. Without a leader, it would be easy for something to happen. So, he asked the Snow Sword School to get rid of another senior disciple. The reason sounded reasonable, so the Archaic Alliance did not stop it and allowed the Snow Sword faction to send out Bing Wuqing, the Uncle Master, leading the team again. There was only one condition, and that was that Bing Wuqing could only lead the disciples of her own Snow Sword faction. She was not allowed to order the disciples of other archaic sects around, and she was not allowed to fight for power with Exenijia. After all, Exenijia was the recognized rightful Uncle Master leading the team in the secular world. "Where's Lung Lung? Call her over," Bing Wuqing said directly. Other than leading the disciples of the Snow Sword faction for the training, she had another important mission, which was to send Lung Lung back to the archaic underworld. The sect's life was greater than the sky. Ever since they found out that Lung Lung had disobeyed the order, the senior disciples of the Snow Sword faction had been quarreling like a pot of porridge. The two factions had a small quarrel every day, and a big quarrel every 3 days. Vice leader Xue swore to punish Lung Lung to avenge her son, while Lung Lung's master argued with reason every time. But no matter what the final outcome was, there was one thing that couldn't be discussed, and that was that Lung Lung had to be sent back as soon as possible. Otherwise, her continuous disobedience would be seen as a traitor, and even Lung Lung's master would not be able to save her. "I'm afraid it's not possible." Xue Jianfeng shook his head, looking troubled. "What's not possible?" Bing Wuqing frowned slightly. regarding the matter of Lung Lung, he did not have a clear stance. He was purely carrying out orders. As long as Lung Lung was sent back to the archaic underworld, no matter what the final outcome was, it would have nothing to do with him. She has now completely betrayed the sect. Unless we use force as a senior brother, there's no way I can summon her. Shui Jianfeng laughed bitterly, then added, even if it's Master Bing's order, I'm afraid she won't listen to it. Really? Bing Wuqing's aura was already extremely cold to begin with, and this time, the temperature dropped even further. Even Shui Jianfeng subconsciously hugged his arms tightly. Seeing is believing. It's a waste of my words here. Why don't you make a trip there yourself, Master Bing? We'll know if it's true or not. Shui Jianfeng's tone was rather sincere, and he looked fair and objective. He did not have the slightest intention of slandering Lung Lung. Bing Wuqing glanced at him. Although he did not have a clear stance, if Lung Ling really dared to disobey his orders, then she would undoubtedly be Bing Wuqing's enemy. When dealing with traitorous disciples, Bing Wuqing's principle had always been to kill without mercy. Alright, lead the way. Bing Wuqing's eyes narrowed into thin slits. Yes, Master Bing, please follow me. Shui Jianfeng nodded repeatedly, and at the same time he was overjoyed. He knew that with Lin Yi's stubbornness, he would never hand Lung Lung over to the Snow Sword School easily. And with Bing Wuqing's character, she might just make a move at any time. She was a true early-stage gold elixir expert, and Lin Yi was nothing in front of her. Under Shui Jianfeng's lead, Bing Wuqing soon arrived at the small island assigned to the Blue Cloud sect on the North Island. At this time, Xian Yijie was personally explaining the entry-level mental cultivation method to a few prospective disciples. When he looked up, he saw Bing Wuqing coming toward him with a cold aura, and he immediately frowned. Bing Wuqing? What are you doing here? Xian Yijie was slightly stunned. The circle of the small Jianghu in the far ancient era was not as big as that of the Heaven-level island. The Blue Cloud sect and the Snow Sword School were both part of the 10 small sects and families, so they had a lot of communication in various aspects. Moreover, he and Bing Wuqing were both early-stage gold elixir experts, so naturally, they had met several times. Hand Lung Lung over. Bing Wuqing had no intention of making small talk with him, and directly demanded Lung Lung. What do you mean? Coming here to ask for Lung Lung? Bing Wuqing, aren't you being too arrogant? Xian Yijie's face darkened. Although they were both early-stage gold elixir experts, in terms of experience, he was far more experienced than Bing Wuqing. Moreover, he was the master uncle who was leading the team in the secular world this time, so Bing Wuqing had no reason to ignore him. Hand Lung Lung over. Bing Wuqing repeated herself, and just stared at Xian Yijie expressionlessly. Her attitude was so tough that it was a complete mess. Shui Jianfeng, who was standing at the side, could not help but feel pleased when he saw this scene. Although Bing Wuqing was not the same kind of person as him, it was really delightful to see Xian Yijie, the old bastard, being humiliated. Chapter 51-23. Looking at Xian Yijie, who stood in front of her without budging an inch, Bing Wuqing fell into silence. She had never been a patient person. If they were in the small archaic underworld, she might have already taken action. However, Xian Yijie's threat was not an exaggeration. No matter how daring Bing Wuqing was, it was still wishful thinking to say that she could go against the entire archaic alliance. I'm not going to provoke your Blue Cloud sect, nor do I want to fight against the entire archaic alliance. I just want to bring back someone from my Snow Sword School. Get out of my way. Bing Wuqing gave a rare explanation. Xian Yijie didn't move his feet at all. He squinted at him and said blandly, I'm sorry, this island now belongs to the Green Cloud sect of the North Island. It's your business to take people, but how dare you come to the territory of the Green Cloud sect of the North Island to take people without telling us? Bing Wuqing's eyes narrowed again when she heard that. The ice-cold aura emanating from her body caused the prospective disciples to shiver in cold. They looked at each other in dismay. Where did this monster come from? Standing next to him would freeze people to death. The archaic alliance could not be provoked. As one of the 10 small sects, The Blue Cloud sect was not to be trifled with either. After all, it had the Soaring sect and Xuanji sect of the North Island. Even with Bing Wuqing's pride, she did not dare to offend them directly. Even an early-stage nascent soul cultivator might not have the guts to go against such a sect, let alone an early-stage gold core cultivator. Who gave you the guts to shelter a traitor disciple of my Snow Sword School? Snow Sword School and the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island have always been on good terms. I don't intend to cause any trouble today. I just want to bring back a traitor disciple of my Snow Sword School. This is the unanimous order of all the senior members of the Snow Sword School. Xanijia, are you sure you want to interfere? Bing Wuqing said in a low voice. A traitor disciple. This was the first time he put this label on Cold. The situation forced him to do so. If he did not do so, Xanijia would not let them go easily. Xanijia could not help but raise his eyebrows. He had always thought that Bing Wuqing was an arrogant so-called genius. He did not expect her to be so eloquent. He had underestimated her. To be honest, Bing Wuqing did not have the guts to provoke the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island. Xanijia did not have the guts to provoke the Snow Sword School either. Even if the school could save his life, he would have no future in the Archaic Alliance. However, what gave Xanijia a headache was his grandmaster, Lin Yi. Judging from Lin Yi's previous attitude, he would never let Cold be captured by the other party. Now that Lin Yi had not returned, if he were to hand Cold over to Bing Wuqing directly, how was he going to explain to Lin Yi in the future? But if he insisted on not releasing him, Bing Wuqing's side would be hard to deal with. After all, he had no reason to forcibly protect a traitorous disciple of the Snow Sword sect. Not only would he offend the Snow Sword sect, but he might also be punished in the Blue Cloud sect on the North Island. At that moment, Xanijia was caught in a dilemma and the situation fell into a stalemate. Martial Uncle Xen, if you can't make up your mind, why don't you let Cold decide for herself? Maybe she'll be willing to go with us? Xue Jianfeng suddenly said. Xanijia frowned. He had to admit that this was a compromise. If Leng Leng was willing to go back with Bing Wuqing, then even Lin Yi would not blame him. Xanijia nodded and said, all right, I can bring you to see her. However, it's up to her to decide whether to stay or leave. You can't force her. Then let's go. Bing Wuqing glanced at Xue Jianfeng. To be honest, she didn't think much of this second-generation cultivator. However, what he said just now was rather quick-witted. If it weren't for Xue Jianfeng's words, Xanijia might not have agreed to it. As long as he could successfully meet Cold, it was entirely up to him whether to bring her along or not. Even if he were to force his way through, would Xanijia risk his life for an irrelevant Cold? After giving some instructions to the prospective disciples, Xanijia brought the two of them to another spiritual eye. The scene here was bustling with activity. Wu Chentian was leading a large group of people to build a villa with a view of the sea. Beside the spiritual eye, a few elegant wooden huts had been built. However, they were only temporary. Wu Chentian had gotten someone to design a bunch of blueprints. Even if these Sky Phase Perfection Masters were amazingly efficient, it would take at least half a year to build according to the blueprints. They were only at the foundation stage. Seeing that Xanijia had brought his people over, Wu Chentian and the others came up to greet him. Xanijia would come over to check on them from time to time. Because of his relationship with Lin Yi, they got along well with him. Elder Xine, why did you bring this guy here? Ling Shan frowned as she looked at Xue Jianfeng in disgust. The others looked at each other as well. Xue Jianfeng was a disgusting clown in their eyes, and he wasn't welcomed here at all. Xue Jianfeng was so angry that his entire body was trembling when he was stared at by the crowd with such undisguised disgust. If it weren't for Xanijia's presence, he would have slashed these reckless bastards to death with his sword. Unfortunately, Xanijia and Bing Wuqing were right in front of him, so there was no room for him to vent his anger. He could only forcefully swallow his anger. Song Lingshan and Wu Chentian were still confused. Leng Leng, who was sitting among the girls and listening to all kinds of gossip, suddenly saw Bing Wuqing. Her expression changed drastically. She stood up nervously. Oh, you're already at the middle phase of foundation building? Bing Wuqing's gaze landed on Lung Lung. She couldn't help but feel surprised. Even with her powerful talent, she couldn't compare to Lung Lung's shattered ice physique. Among the disciples of the Snow Sword sect, Lung Lung was the only one who could impress her. As for Xue Jianfeng, he wasn't even on the list. Lung Lung was a seed with unlimited potential. This was the evaluation that most of the sect's higher-ups had for Lung Lung. Although Bing Wuqing didn't agree with it completely, she had to admit that Lung Lung was very talented. Now, only 2 months had passed, and Lung Lung had actually broken through from the early phase of foundation building to the middle phase. This was the best evidence for that evaluation. Master Bing, this is also one of the evidence that she betrayed the sect. That Lin Yi had given her a lot of pills to bribe her. Otherwise, how could she have broken through so quickly? Xue Jianfeng tried to sow discord. Chapter 51-24. Lung Lung's face paled, but she didn't move her feet. She just stared at Bing Wuqing stubbornly, gritting her teeth. Master Bing, I'm sorry, I can't go back yet. I said, go back with me. Bing Wuqing's tone was unquestionable, and a strong and cold aura exploded from her, pressing down on everyone's heads. Although they were all Sky-class complete perfection, the opponent was at the early stage of Golden Core. The difference in strength was too big, and just Bing Wuqing's aura alone was too much for them to handle. They all felt like they were facing a great enemy. I don't know who you are, but Lung Lung will never go back with you. Just give up. Ying Ziyu jumped out and shouted. Her tone and demeanor reminded her of the delinquent girl she used to be. She didn't spend much time with Lung Lung, but surprisingly, she was the closest to Lung Lung out of everyone. God knows how they found a common topic. Bing Wuqing humphed coldly. She didn't move at all, but that invisible, cold aura pressed down on Ziyu alone. Ziyu was also a Sky-class complete perfection, but she had just leveled up. Whether it was in terms of strength or foundation, she was at the bottom of the group. There was no way she could withstand this kind of pressure. Her knees gave way, and she almost knelt down on the spot, but she gritted her teeth and held on. Ling Shan, Wu Chentian, and the others quickly shielded her behind them. Unfortunately, they weren't that strong either. Facing Bing Wuqing's pressure, it was already good enough that they could stand still. They couldn't do anything else. Merciless ice force. Exanijia frowned at the sight. Although he had never fought against Bing Wuqing before, he had some understanding of this signature ability of hers. Logically speaking, it was quite impossible for even a Golden Core expert to suppress so many people at the heaven-level paragon with just his aura alone. However, Bing Wuqing could do it because her aura had already merged with the vital energy in her body. That was why her aura was so oppressive and aggressive. It was also because of this that the people standing beside her were shivering from the cold. Of course, Bing Wuqing was definitely not going all out yet. Otherwise, these people would have been turned into ice sculptures long ago. In front of her signature merciless ice aura, there was no chance of survival at all. Looking at everyone's persevering expression, Exanijia was a little hesitant to step forward and stop them. However, Bing Wuqing had not done anything overboard so far. She was merely using the lightest, ruthless ice force to intimidate everyone. Even if he wanted to stop her, he would not have a good reason to do so. In the end, he decided to stand by and watch. At this moment, Cold Lung had already stepped forward. Bing Wuqing was here for her, and she would not drag everyone down no matter what. You should know very well what will happen to you if you don't return with me. Bing Wuqing looked at her expressionlessly. He had no friendship with Lung Lung, nor did he have any friendship with Lung Lung's master. He also had no friendship with Xue Jianfeng and his vice-sect leader father. He was only carrying out a mission, that was all. However, after seeing Lung Lung today, he felt a little bit of admiration for her. No matter how Xue Jianfeng tried to sow discord, the fact that she could rise 2 levels in such a short period of time proved Lung Lung's superb aptitude. If it were someone else, it would be useless no matter how many elixirs she took. Of course, admiration was just admiration. Bing Wuqing lived up to her name. He would not let this little impression affect his actions. If Lung Lung dared to say no at this moment, then she would be a traitor to the sect. He would kill her as he wished, without any hesitation. Lung Lung's expression was very conflicted. If she went back with Bing Wuqing, it would mean that she would be separated from Lin Yi from now on. They might not even have the chance to see each other again in this lifetime. She had just found someone in her heart. How could she leave Lin Yi just like that? However, if she did not go back with Bing Wuqing, everyone was bound to suffer because of her. These were Lin Yi's lovers and brothers who had gone through life and death together. They were all very friendly and warm to her. How could she drag everyone down because of her own selfishness? It was a dilemma. Lung Lung felt like she was standing on top of a mountain with no way out. One step forward and one step back would also be the same. As Lung Lung hesitated, the heartless ice pressure on everyone gradually increased. Ing Ziyu, who was the weakest among them, was the first to give in. She knelt down with a thud, but still shouted, "Lung Lung sis, don't hesitate. We'll advance and retreat together with you." "Yes, advance and retreat together." The others followed and shouted. Ling Shan, who was the closest to her, pulled her hand and forced a gentle smile. "From the moment you got together with Linny, we are a family that will go through life and death together. You have no reason to go back with him, so you don't have to hesitate, understand?" Ling Shan sis. Lung Lung was never a person who was easily moved by emotions, but she couldn't help but feel a little sour in her nose at this moment. She resisted the urge to cry and said, "And everyone, please help me tell him that I'm going back first. I'll wait for him in the ancient little Jianghu for the rest of my life." After that, Lung Lung ignored everyone's dissuasion and walked towards Bing Wuqing. She was more unwilling to leave this place than anyone else, but she had to leave now. Everyone was so loyal and she couldn't hurt everyone because of her own selfishness. Bing Wuqing looked at this scene and nodded slightly. Since Lung Lung was so sensible, it was not a bad thing for her. It saved her a lot of trouble. As for Exan Ijie, who was standing at the side, he didn't say much. This result was a happy ending for everyone. He could explain to Bing Wuqing and Lin. If it wasn't necessary, he really didn't want to cause any trouble. Watching Lung Lung walk behind Bing Wuqing, Ling Shan, Wu Chuntian and the others were agitated. However, they were all suffocated by the heartless ice pressure, let alone standing up to stop her. "Let's go," Bing Wuqing said and turned to leave with Lung Lung. At this moment, a playful voice suddenly came from the small wooden house next to the spiritual eye. "Leaving just like that? Aren't you going to say goodbye to this old man?" Along with the voice, Lin Dongfang and Aunt Qing walked out of the small wooden house slowly, completely ignoring the heartless ice pressure that was everywhere around them. They walked towards Bing Wuqing as if there was no one else around. Chapter 51-25. What's more, how could an ordinary old man ignore the merciless ice force? At this moment, the power of the merciless ice force had pressed all the experts in the heaven stage exceptional realm to the ground. If they were ordinary people, they would have been frozen into popsicles and could not walk normally. Not only Bing Wuqing, but even Exine Ijie was stunned. When Lin Dongfang and Aunt Qing came, he personally came out to greet them. He thought that they were two acquaintances that Lin Yi found in the secular world to cover his identity. He was an expert in the early stage of the Gold Core realm, but he did not notice anything strange about Lin Dongfang. He thought that he was just an ordinary person. Who would have thought that this person was so mysterious? "Senior." Lung Lung looked at Lin Dongfang with a complicated expression. She did not expect that Lin Dongfang would come out at this time and walk up to her as if there was no one else around. "My daughter, my little brat is so worrisome. He runs around outside all day long and can't even take care of his own woman. As his grandfather, I can only reluctantly do it for him. You don't mind, do you?" Lin Dongfang smiled at Lung Leng. But Lung Leng hastily wanted to refuse. However, when she met Lin Dongfang's calm gaze, she didn't know what to say. Although Lin Dongfang's expression was calm, she felt that she couldn't refuse him. "I mind." At this time, Shui Jianfeng suddenly stood up and pointed at Lin Dongfang arrogantly. "Who are you? Do you have the right to speak here? Get lost." Although it was a pity that Linny was not here and could not see the scene of Bing Wuqing directly crushing Linny, It was not a bad thing for him to let Bing Wuching take Lung Lung away. Once Lung Lung was escorted back to Snow Sword Sect, she would definitely suffer a lot. After all, her father was the vice leader of the sect. Moreover, when Lin Yi came back and knew all this, he would definitely go berserk. At that time, it was very likely that he would fight with Bing Wuching, and he would still die. It could be said that since Bing Wuching was here today, no matter what the result was, it was not a bad thing for Xue Jianfeng. As for this nameless old man who popped out and got in the way, he could just slap him to death. Who are you? Lin Dongfang looked at him. Courting death. As Xue Jianfeng spoke, he did not hesitate to attack Lin Dongfang. He did not know who this old man was, nor did he know how strong this old man was. Of course, he did not need to know that. From his point of view, all he needed to do was to kill Lin Dongfang with a single slap. With Bing Wuching around, he was not afraid of causing trouble at all. No matter how big the trouble was, Bing Wuching would be there to handle it. Lin Dongfang watched all this with a smile and did not move an inch. Xian Yijie panicked instantly. It was fine if Bing Wuching used her merciless ice force to oppress the crowd, but if something happened to Lin Dongfang under his watch, he would not be able to get away with it. Once the powerful Zhenqi barrier appeared in front of Lin Dongfang, Xue Jianfeng's palm actually seemed to have hit an iron plate. His entire palm twisted into a strange arc. Not to mention himself, even the people watching from the side felt the pain for him. Xue Jianfeng was a foundation-building paragon. There were only 2 early-stage golden elixir experts present who had the means to defeat him. Of course, it couldn't be Bing Wuching, it could only be Xian Yijie. Ah! Xue Jianfeng suddenly roared in pain, but he did not lose his mind. If he really dared to attack Xian Yijie in this place, Bing Wuching would definitely not help him. That would be courting death. Xue Jianfeng immediately drew his sword in a rage. He moved to the other side of Lin Dongfang in a flash and stabbed at his throat with a backhand, intending to kill him with a single stab. How dare you! Xian Yijie was infuriated as well. Blocking Xue Jianfeng's slap without batting an eyelid was already a warning. He didn't expect Xue Jianfeng to be so arrogant. He didn't put him, the junior uncle master, in his eyes at all and dared to kill someone in front of him. Xian Yijie had the North Island's Green Cloud sect as his backer, and he was also the person in charge of the team's experiential learning in the secular world. After all, he was not someone to be trifled with. It was already his limit to let Bing Wuching come and take Xue Jianfeng away. What Xue Jianfeng did was completely challenging his bottom line, and it was intolerable. Xian Yijie immediately followed suit. With his strength, once he got serious, Xue Jianfeng would definitely die. Of course, he would not kill him easily, but at least he had to make Xue Jianfeng suffer. Otherwise, as the leader of the team, his prestige would be tarnished. However, just as Xian Yijie's body moved, a hand suddenly stopped him. It was Bing Wuching. What are you trying to do? Xian Yijie was shocked. He did not expect that even Bing Wuching would cooperate with Xue Jianfeng. Was she challenging him and the North Island's Green Cloud sect? Bing Wuching did not answer, but her gaze fell on Lin Dongfang with deep meaning. She wanted to use Xue Jianfeng to test this old man's strength. As for whether or not someone would die in the end, she did not care at all. As long as she did not really fight with Xian Yijie, killing an ordinary old man would at most cause a verbal dispute between the 2 sections. It would not cause any real trouble. Lung Lung, Song Lingshan, Wu Chentian and the others were shocked. They all broke out in cold sweat for Lin Dongfang. Although they knew that Lin Dongfang was strong, Xue Jianfeng was a foundation-building full-cycle master after all. He was not on the same level as a sky full-cycle master. Could Lin Dongfang handle him? In the end, Lin Dongfang's next move quickly dispelled everyone's worries. One slap, just one slap. There was no shocking sound, but Xue Jianfeng was sent flying to the ground by this seemingly ordinary slap. He laid on the ground like a dead dog and did not move for a long time. No one knew if he was dead or alive. Xian Yijie was stunned. Even he couldn't handle Xue Jianfeng with such ease. Who the hell was this old man? Bing Wuching was also shocked. She could see that Lin Dongfang was not an ordinary person, but she did not expect this old man to be so extraordinary. Even Shui Jianfeng was knocked unconscious with one slap. He was at least a golden core master. But how could there be a golden core master in the common world? If this guy was also a member of the Archaic Alliance, it was impossible for Bing Wuqing not to have heard of him. Even if she didn't know him, it was obvious that the Archaic Alliance had sent a few gold core experts. No one could hide it. Chapter 51-26. You're asking me? Lin Dongfang smiled, thought for a moment, and said, "These children's parents." Parents? Bing Wuqing's eyelids twitched and she frowned. "Do you know what you've done?" "Of course, the children are being bullied, and as their parent, I have to step in and settle the matter, don't you think so?" Lin Dongfang spoke like a parent. "You're provoking the Snow Sword School." Bing Wuqing humphed coldly, her expressionless face suddenly filled with murderous intent. She declared, "Provoking the Snow Sword School is courting death. You can die now." As soon as she finished speaking, the merciless ice aura that was pressing down on everyone's heads suddenly dissipated. Only then did everyone have a chance to catch their breaths. Bing Wuqing did not do anything, but right at this moment, the sand beneath Lin Dongfang's feet suddenly sank. Without any warning, his entire body sank deep into the sand, leaving only his head on the ground. Upon a closer look, Lin Dongfang's entire body was covered in a layer of frost, and even the hole he was trapped in had completely turned into a chilling ice hole. "Senior." Lung Lung, who was the closest, quickly reached out to help. She only now understood that it wasn't that Bing Wuqing had removed her merciless ice aura, but that she had condensed the merciless ice aura that was pressing down on everyone at one point, and that was why such a powerful aura had erupted in an instant. But before Lung Lung could even touch Lin Dongfang's hand, she also sunk abruptly. Although she wasn't stuck in the ice hole like Lin Dongfang, she was still firmly pressed to the ground by the powerful merciless ice aura, and this was only a small portion of Bing Wuqing's strength. Even so, it was enough for Lung Lung to take a beating. "I've overestimated you. That's all there is to it." Bing Wuqing looked at the frozen Lin Dongfang, and her lips curled into a disdainful smile. She thought that she had encountered a rare master, but it turned out that she was overthinking. It seemed that this old man was able to defeat Shui Jianfeng with one slap not because he had the strength of a golden core, but because he was hiding something. As she spoke, amidst the gasps of Song Lingshan and the others, Bing Wuqing suddenly bent down and grabbed Lin Dongfang. This old man dared to provoke the Snow Sword School in front of her, and she had no choice but to twist his head off in front of everyone as a warning. This is the territory of the Green Cloud sect of the North Island. If you dare to mess around, you will be the enemy of the entire Green Cloud sect of the North Island. Seeing that, Xan Yijie couldn't care less about anything else. He hurriedly condensed a vital energy barrier between Lin Dongfang and Bing Wuqing. It was the same move that made Shui Jianfeng suffer a great loss previously. No matter what, he couldn't let Lin Dongfang die here, especially under his watch. Bing Wuqing's movements paused slightly. She turned to glance at him and said, "Our Snow Sword School has already lost Shui Jianfeng, so this old man naturally has to die. It's fair and reasonable." Having said that, Bing Wuqing did not care about Xan Yijie's extremely ugly expression. She formed a claw with one hand and moved at an extremely fast speed. She broke through Xan Yijie's vital energy barrier in an instant and went straight for Xan Yijie's head. So powerful. Xan Yijie was taken aback. Both of them were experts in the early stage of the Gold Elixir realm. Although it was not strange for an expert of the same level to break through the vital chi barrier, it was not a powerful defensive move after all. Moreover, the opponent could break through the barrier with a single point and gain the upper hand. However, it was the first time he had seen someone break through the barrier as cleanly as Bing Wuqing did. This fellow was probably one of the top existences among those of the same level as her. Xan Yijie was horrified. In a moment of desperation, he had only wanted to buy some time with the vital energy barrier. He did not expect that this move would not even be able to delay the attack for a moment. Instead, it was instantly pierced through like a paper window, and he was caught unprepared. The situation was extremely critical. Xianjia's only option at the moment was to attack Bing Wuqing with all his might, regardless of everything else. Perhaps he could save Lin Dongfang's life, but that would be tantamount to completely falling out with him. If things went awry, the entire Green Cloud sect of the North Island might be dragged into this. The consequences would be no small matter. Just as Xianjia was hesitating, Bing Wuqing's ice claw, which was condensed with layers of ice energy, was only inches away from Lin Dongfang's head. At this moment, someone suddenly kicked up from below. It was Lung Lung, who was pressed to the ground by Bing Wuqing's merciless ice force. She was an expert in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Although Lung Lung could not stand up under the pressure of Bing Wuqing's merciless ice force, she could still launch an attack even if she was lying down. Especially at this moment, when Bing Wuqing took the initiative to bend down, it was the perfect opportunity for her to kick Bing Wuqing's face. You're like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. What a joke! Bing Wuqing snorted in disdain. The little bit of admiration she had for Lung Lung vanished instantly. Her ice claw did not stop moving at all, while her other hand easily blocked Lung Lung's attack route. Bam! Bing Wuqing pinched Lung Lung's left leg that was kicking at her with one hand, and was about to break it with the momentum. He would never show compassion for the fairer sex. Since Lung Lung dared to attack him, she had to pay the corresponding price. At least from Bing Wuqing's point of view, breaking a leg was considered a very light punishment. If the higher-ups of the Snow Sword sect had not ordered him to escort Lung Lung back alive, he might have killed her directly. He would be merciless in his actions, or else he would not be able to live up to his name. However, before Bing Wuqing could twist her leg, he suddenly felt a bone-chilling coldness in the palm of his hand. Because he had cultivated merciless ice force, his whole body was already like an ice man. However, this bone-chilling coldness was much stronger than his, so much so that he could not help but shiver. Ice-shattering constitution. Bing Wuqing reacted immediately. She had never sparred with Lung Lung before, and her understanding of the ice-shattering constitution had always been limited to rumors. She had thought that it was just a little stronger than the average constitution. Now that she had experienced it herself, she immediately knew that she was very wrong. She was only at the middle stage of Foundation establishment, but she could actually make her, a beginner Gold Core practitioner, shiver all over. The ice-shattering constitution was indeed nature-defying. No, she had to get rid of this woman. Otherwise, there would be endless troubles when she grew up in the future. Bing Wuqing changed her mind immediately. Now that things had developed to this point, he and Lung Lung were completely on opposite sides, and he had never had the habit of leaving hidden dangers for himself. Cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots was in line with his nature. As for whether the higher-ups of the Snow Sword sect would blame him after this, he could not be bothered anymore. Compared to his own safety, what was a few words from the higher-ups? In an instant, a cold, murderous aura poured out without reservation. Lung Lung, whose attack had been blocked, felt that something was wrong. However, at this moment, merciless ice force was still suppressing her. She could not even stand up for a moment, and there was nowhere to run. Chapter 51-27. Xianjia, who was the only one who stood a chance against Bing Wuqing, was still hesitating. He didn't notice the sudden change in Bing Wuqing's mentality. The situation was extremely critical. Lung Ling knew that she couldn't escape death. She closed her eyes calmly. Lin Yi's face appeared in her mind. She wanted to engrave Lin Yi in the depths of her soul. They were not fated to be together in this life. They could only meet again in the next life. A crisp sound of bones breaking could be heard. Lung Lung's heart trembled subconsciously. However, to her surprise, she didn't feel any pain. Instead, it was Bing Wuqing who suddenly screamed in pain, "Ah!" Everyone was dumbfounded. Lung Ling quickly opened her eyes, and the scene in front of her stunned her as well. Bing Wuqing's position had not changed, and Xianjia had not made a move either. It was just that Lin Dongfang, who was obviously frozen to the point where he could not move, had unknowingly placed his hand on Bing Wuqing's ice claws. He even had a calm smile on his face, as if nothing had happened. Bing Wucheng's ice claw had been bent into an extremely twisted angle. Just one look at it would make one's scalp tingle. No wonder he was in so much pain that his veins were popping and his face was contorted. "You're not bad at suppressing people out of thin air." "What's that?" Lin Dongfang clapped his hands and climbed out of the ice pit as if nothing had happened. "I'm going to kill you." Bing Wucheng endured the excruciating pain. An ice sword was formed in her other hand out of thin air. She looked like she was going to attack Lin Dongfang in front of her. However, no one expected her to turn the sword and stab Lung Lung, who was on the ground instead. Despicable and shameless. Ling Shan and the others cursed in anger. Even Xi and Ijie couldn't stand it anymore. He thought that although Bing Wucheng was cold and heartless, she was at least an upright person. He didn't expect her to be this shameless. Just because she was afraid of Lin Dongfang, she attacked Lung Lung, who couldn't fight back. This person was a disgrace to the Golden Core experts. However, Bing Wucheng did not care about what the crowd was thinking. In fact, she did not think that such a method was shameless at all. Since Lin Dongfang was more dangerous than she had expected, and she had even lost a hand, the best solution now was to attack the enemy's weakness. And Lung Lung, who was beside her feet, happened to be such an excellent cover. In his plan, as long as Lin Dongfang came to save Cold, then he would have the opportunity to kill him in one strike. However, Lin Dongfang's response was far beyond his expectations. Lin Dongfang's response was very simple. He was not angry, nor was he enraged. There was even a calm smile on his face. Without even looking, he directly blasted a punch over. Boom! Lin Dongfang's fist landed on her abdomen even though he had moved later. Bing Wucheng spat out a large mouthful of blood, and her entire body curled up like a shrimp. She could no longer move, and just staggered and fell to the ground. Even if he was beaten to death, he could not understand why the old man's fist was so frightening, even though there was not the slightest fluctuation of vital energy on him. It was so frightening that it could easily destroy a beginner golden elixir expert like him. Bing Wucheng's face was ashen. Although she was not dead yet, she knew that she was already crippled, because Lin Dongfang's earth-shattering punch had directly shattered her dantian. "All right, everyone, do what you need to do. Don't be lazy and hurry up and build the house. With this kind of efficiency, when do you think you can finish the work?" Lin Dongfang waved his hand at the dumbfounded crowd. He did not feel that killing Bing Wucheng was some earth-shattering event at all. Instead, his actions and demeanor were as casual as stepping on a bug. Not to mention Cold and the others, even Xenijie was dumbfounded for a long time. In the end, he choked out a sentence, "This is a god, daughter, stay here. Regardless of whether you leave or stay, we have to wait for that little rascal to come back and discuss it. What do you think?" Lin Dongfang said as he helped Cold up. "Yes, thank you, senior." Cold nodded gratefully. Although Bing Wucheng and Xue Jianfeng were defeated by Lin Dongfang, it was also because of this that she was in a rather bad situation. This was almost equivalent to completely breaking off relations with the Snow Sword faction. Even if she went back now, she would be accused of betrayal. If it were anyone else, they would have been burning with anxiety. However, Cold was unusually calm at this moment. Lin Dongfang was right. No matter what, they had to wait for Lin Yi to come back first. He was her backbone now. This sudden disturbance was extinguished by Lin Dongfang in a matter of minutes. The crowd looked at each other for a moment, but soon returned to normal. Each of them went back to what they were doing. After all, they had all seen the situation when Lin Dongfang attacked last time. It was also a one-sided crushing. The only difference was that the opponent this time was much stronger. Now, in the eyes of the crowd, Lin Dongfang was just like Lin Yi. They were both unfathomable super-existences. As long as either of them was in charge, there was nothing to be afraid of even if the sky fell down. "Senior Lin," Xenijie called out to Lin Dongfang awkwardly. With his strength in the early stage of Gold Core, apart from the nascent soul-old monsters of various sects in the Immemorial Alliance, there was no one else who deserved to be called a senior by him. Even if Lin Dongfang was the so-called grandfather of Lin Yi, he did not have the qualification to be called a senior. At most, they could only talk as equals. This was already giving face to Lin Yi, the Grand Master. However, now, Exanijia was willing to call Lin Dongfang as Senior Lin. Even Bing Wuqing was easily killed by Lin Dongfang. If one were to say that Lin Dongfang's strength was at least at the peak of the early stage of Gold Core, it was definitely not wrong for him to call him Senior. Oh, what's the matter? Lin Dongfang turned his head and looked at him. His tone was indifferent. If Exanijia tried his best to stop Lin Dongfang just now, he might treat him differently. But now, Exanijia's image in his eyes had been discounted. This kind of person was not worthy of complete trust. If he really pinned his hopes on this guy, Lung Lung would have been taken away long ago, and he would have become a corpse long ago. Exanijia did not notice this. Instead, he thought this was the demeanor of a master. After all, it was not easy to get close to a master. Therefore, he said respectfully with a bit of restraint, I wonder how we should deal with these two people. Senior Lin, can you give us some advice? It was only then that the crowd remembered that there were two people lying on the ground. Bing Wuqing not only had one of her hands been destroyed, but her dantian was also destroyed by a punch. She was lying on the ground and could not get up at all. As for Xue Jianfeng, he did not move at all. No one knew if he was dead or alive. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.